347. 450. 6189.
Recording in progress.
I'm trying to think.
You guys mentioned like meeting, or those the same thing?
Yes. Okay, good, so now we have to go to settings. And then. We'll do change the camera. Right. So.
Check. Check, check.
And we are unmuted?
Yes.
Great.
Are ready, Adrian? Adrian?
We're ready.
Good evening. This is the Ava Community Energy Community Advisory Committee meeting for December 15, 2025. It is about 6:02. We are here in the boardroom / kitchen of Ava Community Energy, 1999 Harrison Street, Suite 2300 in Oakland, California, 94612. And some people are joining us remotely via Zoom, some in Livermore, Fremont, and Stockton. Welcome online. If you're there, we should hopefully have a good meeting. With that, we'll go with the welcome and roll call. Adrian.
Great, thank you very much. Member Landry.
Present.
Member Weiner. Present. Member Balkison.
Present.
Member Stevenson.
Present.
Member Swaminathan. Member Lockman. Present. Member Pacheco. Member Harper.
Present.
Member Lewis.
Present.
Vice Chair Souza.
Here I am.
Chair Hernandez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item C2, which is the public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any Ava Community Energy related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time that item is addressed. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the committee are customarily limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must complete an electronic speaker slip. The committee chair may, myself, increase or decrease the time allotted to each speaker. Preferably, we wrap around 8 o'clock or so, but we'll see what happens. So any public comment, in person or online? In person, we have one raised hand. Please.
Joe Heaton, working on 3 minutes.
Good evening, Community Advisory Committee members. Thank you so much for your public service and time. I just wanted to share affirmations around the excitement for the Smart Home Battery Program and Resilience Hub initiative. But as part of the internal team with Emerald Cities Collaborative and as a member of the Local Clean Energy Alliance, we do have some recommendations that we want to share with you as this program is distributing its solar and storage incentive next year. The first recommendation is around the virtual power plant enrollment. We really encourage Ava Community Energy moving forward to consider how to keep those revenues from the virtual power plant program internally. Currently, there is a partnership with Lunar Energy as the kind of manager of the distributed energy resources and DERMS. And we'd like to recommend the CCA to consider creative ways of keeping that revenue internally as you partner with CAISO and also with Lunar Energy. How do we create a structure in the CCA that really encourages local development, local jobs, local revenue internally? So I'd like to make that recommendation on behalf of LCEA. And also a second recommendation is that next year there's a plan for the virtual power plant enrollment, ongoing incentive and upfront incentive, where for that wait list for resilience hubs, Ava Community Energy plans to distribute the solar and storage incentive for the first $1 million out of the 3.75 million allotted. And Emerald Cities Collaborative and Local Clean Energy Alliance and our community outreach partners would like to make sure that the distribution of that incentive is equitable and prioritizes disadvantaged communities, areas that experience high PSPS or power shutoffs, or for communities that have no green infrastructure or resources already available for them to transition into resiliency. One of the trends that we have noticed, for example, I was at a in-person site recently, and that site described their, excitement about creating community gardens, creating programs for workforce development for youths in trade skills, and excitement of transforming a former jail into a shelter and having water stations, but they lack the upfront capital costs to make that transition. And so how do we encourage that revenue from our local clean public agency to invest and give that flexible funding for resilience hubs that need that for the upfront capital costs and not leave anyone behind with this really exciting solar and storage incentive program. So these are some of the recommendations I'd like to share. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you very much for that public comment. We'll take that note and hopefully we can discuss it more. And in the new year, really evaluate how we can really ensure that we understand what ECC is doing with LCEA in regards to the virtual power plants, and then how we can maybe bring and maintain more revenue locally, supporting our resilient hubs with the upfront capital needs, and really making sure that $1 million is allocated equitably in our community. So I look forward to hearing more about that information, hopefully in the new year, and we'll see how we can agendize that with staff support in the new year, January, February. So we'll talk through that and have a conversation offline about that. So thank you so much. All right, with that, I think we have the approval of the minutes from November 17, 2025. I'll give everybody about a minute or so to look at those minutes from 2020, from last month's meeting. Take a look now. Any questions or clarifications? And Adrian, you mentioned something about a new technology for taking minutes. Can you speak to that?
Yes, it will be rolled out shortly, in the new year.
And you're using some sort of AI technology
Absolutely.
to assist you in taking those notes, being more detailed. But overall, I think we have some good information here. I'm happy to take a motion to move these minutes forward unless there are any corrections.
I'll start it off with a motion to move the minutes forward.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'll second. Any dialogue, conversations, corrections? All right, we'll look forward to those next set of minutes with the newer AI technology to bring in more robust conversations for when we have members who are absent or not unable to attend. This is a good way to catch up, especially also provide the context for our board directors and community members to see more details other than just the actions. So I'll look for any kind of comment on them. Public comment, any concerns, online or offline?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that I'll do a roll call vote. Adrian, please.
Thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Weiner.
I wasn't here, so I abstained.
Member Balkison.
Yes.
Member Stevenson.
Yes.
Member Lockman.
Yes.
Member Pacheco. Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza.
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you. All right, so the next item is my chair report. So thank you very much. I sent that over about an hour ago, and thank you, Adrian and team, for printing that out.
Hold on 1 second.
I wanted to take those few minutes to report back on the Ava Community Energy Board of Directors meeting held on November 19th and share how our committee recommendations were received. On the Smart Home Battery Resilience Hub program, our committee supported approval of the budget and program designed. I'm pleased to report the board voted unanimously, 60 in favor, none opposed, to adopt the program. This was a clear example of CAC priorities aligning with board direction. On the customer programs roadmap, CSA, we recommend the rejection of the consulting agreement with Deloitte, citing ethical concerns tied to their federal contracts with DHS and ICE. The board ultimately voted 7-8-1 against the CSA, consistent with our recommendation. I also shared with the board the appendix we prepared, documenting Deloitte's federal engagements, and we circulated them there in the attachment you should have now for reference. On the 2026 federal forecast and adjustments, staff presented an alternative proposal to eliminate the CareFair customer credits. That proposal was not supported nor voted upon by the board. I made clear that our committee had not been asked to review this item, which was frustrating, but I advocated strongly to maintain the credits. The board affirmed that credits will continue, funded from current fiscal year revenues. This protects affordability for customers. There also highlights the revenue challenges ahead, which is why the board is beginning discussion about AVA's overall value proposition. Towards the last couple minutes, Chair Marquez requested a procurement policy be added to a future executive committee meeting in January. The goal is to establish clear direction on contracting, including revisiting the customer programs roadmap consultant issue. Chair Marquez emphasized that AVA should not, Member Marquez emphasized that AVA should not support organizations implicated in harmful practices, underscoring the ethical dimensions of procurement decisions. In closing from that report, I want to thank this committee for its thoughtful recommendations, especially Member Pacheco for bringing up the concern and deliberating here that evening. Your input directly shaped board decisions on key items where items were not brought to us, such as the CAREFAIR credits. I want to make sure to advocate for the community perspective. We remain a vital voice in ensuring AVA's programs reflect equity, resilience, and transparency. This evening, the board is, I'm going to cover most of the items on the board action items, except for one, which is the JPA update. That will be brought up, as well as a legislative update that we did not hear. Those two items will be discussed at the board meeting on Wednesday. Vice Chair Souza will be there in my absence. I have a family commitment. My daughter's going to be in a small place, so she wants to I'm going to make sure I'm there. But thank you to Vice Chair for taking on and lifting up our concerns messages from this evening to that meeting. On the JPA, it will be looking at some items around, I already forgot, my apologies, I had that up. There it is. Mostly they're going to look through, my apologies. Yeah, so again, going through the board of directors will be in charge of ensuring that we have the CAC members aligned, making sure that we can also expand to other territories like San Joaquin County, and making sure that we can grow that. But also, the board of directors will still have the power to add new members to the CAC, maintaining the number we have at the moment. So we'll have that item there. It should not affect us, but we have items today that we'll discuss around our composition, our expansion, because of the expansion of the growth. So I look forward to having a good meeting tonight. Any questions around my report or concerns? Yes, Indra.
Ed, can you clarify what you mean by the JPA discussion?
Sure. Give me 1 second. Let me bring more details to that. I had the right page up, but I think I lost it. Kate, do you mind speaking to that if you do me a favor?
Yeah, staff will be bringing a proposal to the board of directors on Wednesday to make some amendments to our JPA. They're relatively small amendments, mostly like making sure that components of the JPA are more in line with current practice. For example, in the JPA for the Community Advisory Committee, it says, I think it should only have 9 members on it. We have 12. So making sure that the JPA then is more in line than with the expanded CAC and the CAC guide, which I'll talk more about later. And this was also presented to the executive committee back in October, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I think specifically your memo says, establishing quorum by expressly referencing that the ex officio board member may not count towards that quorum. So if myself or the vice chair is there, we don't count towards quorum. I think you're clarifying that. A voting shares formula, sometimes you vote by just person, but sometimes you can break it down how much of a share you have by geography. I think we're looking through that. And also clarify the appointment process that aligns with the board that has chosen. And then aligning with the Community Advisory Committee guide that will, again, to Kate's perspective, comments will align tonight. And there'll be a flexibility in the timing of the appointment for the board chair and vice chair. I think that's outlined in the memo that's drafted and posted online. Okay. Other questions?
Will there be discussions about like where we meet and like if we go around through the different territories or?
That's not being discussed.
There's
but,
no
It's
geographical.
not part of this item, no.
but we can bring up a concern or something like that towards the end if you want to have that discussion. Other questions in the room, online? Any public comment around the report? Okay.
There are no hands raised at this time.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So with that, hopefully everybody likes my report. I'm using my little
Excellent.
features to really summarize technology to help me be efficient and effective and communicate on time. All right, so now we'll move on to item C5, the allocation of surplus revenue from the fiscal year 2024-25 to on-bill credits for Carefara customers. This is a board action item, something that's moving forward after our conversation. And I brought that up to the chair report, where I have recommending adopting a resolution for allocation methodology for on-bill credits for those Carefara customers based on the surpluses from 2024-25. Who's presenting this item?
Hi, I'm Kelly Birdwell Brezovic, Senior Director of Account Services. I'll be presenting this item here today to the CAC and then also on Wednesday to the Board of Directors.
Thank you, Kelly.
So yeah, thanks, Adrian. Can you move on to the next slide?
I have to bring them mic closer.
Yeah, sure. No
Thank you.
problem. I can also talk louder. All right. So just a summary here is that the 2024-2025 fiscal year surplus budget allocation as voted on in the September Board of Directors meeting is as follows, with 90% of surplus being allocated to the rate stabilization fund and 10% going towards on-bill credits, specifically for CARE or FARA customers in AVA service territory, or that are AVA customers, excuse me. There's roughly 13 million in this bucket. Staff recommend providing the same credit amount, about $80, to all active CARE or FARA customers. We'll go into another option that we looked into, and really this is the part that the board will be discussing on Wednesday is is there another way of allocating these funds? So Adrian, if you go to the next slide, we staff looked at both option A and B. Option A is take the roughly $13 million and divide that up equally among all active CARE FARA customers. Option B, I'll pause and remind everyone that AVA just enrolled Stockton and Lathrop, those communities, in April of this year, April of 2025. So really, those customers, you could say, only put in towards about a quarter of that surplus. And so one could make the argument that those customers should receive about a quarter of the same credit amount, right? They were customers for April, May, and June of the previous fiscal year versus all 12 months. If you do the math that way, those customers would receive about $25, with the other communities receiving about $100. Let's go on to the next slide. However, so let's look at some other considerations here in making this decision. Back in January of 2025, CARE FARA customers received $100 in CARE FARA credits, also from a surplus allocation. And then in November 23 and August 22, CARE customers received $50 in credits. So those was just a flat allocation given to all customers. AVA did not enroll any new communities during that time. So it was pretty easy to just say all customers receive the same allocation. But we were looking at, should we provide some sort of other option here, because you have these customers that just came online towards the end of the fiscal year. But the number of months isn't necessarily the most relevant way to look at this, because ultimately customers pay different amounts to AVA based on things like their usage and how much they're billed. Even the PCIA vintage comes into play when you look at actually how much their contributions are. Kind of looking at some extremes, we see the average CARE customer in Stockton and Lathrop used not quite double that the rest of the AVA communities, right? As you move more inland, particularly in those April, May, June, summer months when air conditioning is being used, their usage is significantly higher. So staff recommended not to go by a quarter and a quarter allocation to these customers, but rather to use a flat allocation across all customers. If we go to the next slide, it's pretty simple here. One option is to split up the credit based on how many months of service. The other option is to give a flat credit to all CARE FARA customers. Based on the board decision, credits will be applied to bills in early next year.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, I'd like to have any clarifying questions, comments from the CEC. We can go online first today, and then we'll go take it into the room. And then we'll take public comments. So we'll go online, we'll come back to the room. Online, any comments or clarifications?
Sorry, this is just time for clarifying questions?
Yes, please. Thank you, Davis.
Oh, okay. I don't think I have any clarifying questions at the time.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Anybody else online? All right, in the room. Peter.
Just a question, because I'm ignorant. Is there a difference between CARE and FARA customers?
There is a difference in that the income qualification guidelines are a little bit different, as well as the discount. FARA customers get a slightly lower discount, and the income, it allows for a slightly higher income than CARE customers, which get a higher discount, and it's a lower income to qualify. We generally know that both classes of customers, though, are disadvantaged.
But just to clarify, there wasn't enough of a difference for you to think of making it different.
There are far fewer FARA customers than there are CARE customers, and so that it doesn't make a real difference as far as how you would allocate those funds. And really, all of these customers are disadvantaged.
The other question I have on the rate stabilization account, there's a lot more money going in there. How much money is in there already?
You know what? We'll talk a little bit more about that in an upcoming item.
Well, okay, but just in terms of 90% going to that fund rather than rebates, it's relevant as to how much is really needed for that fund and why versus going to help with people. I mean, affordability, especially with energy rates, is now a national issue. It's been an issue in California for a long time, but it's a huge issue. And so I just want to be careful in terms of trying to be balanced in helping people afford these rates versus saving for a rainy day, basically.
Yeah, sure. So the board made that decision, the 90% versus 10% allocation back at a September meeting. So that is not part of this discussion, that 90-10. It's really out of that 10%, how do we allocate it? That's the discussion today, is do we allocate that sort of flat across all customers, or do we divide that up in some other meaningful way? But that 90-10, that was a board decision based in in September. And as I said, that'll come back up again at another item later on in this meeting.
Thank you.
Peter, I think for your question, I think we do have, the rate stabilization fund may have about 100 million, and then the 90% will go to this other fund, I believe. So they're in the 100 millions amount, just to give you a gauge. It'll be the rate stabilization one and this other revenue stabilization fund. So there'll be over $100 million in each. And so the board is really looking to maintain at least 10%, but there are headwinds in the upcoming year. But we discussed at a previous meeting to maybe at least carve out that 10%. Part of the concerns, and later in my report spoke about how SASU is really concerned about the headwinds and wanting to hold on to all of it. But board direction was to at least provide that 10%, which is something we also supported early on, to at least do that 10%. So I think we're going to maintain it. And there's other things, the prices on electricity is going to come down, I think. But then we're going to see the PCIA go up because there's elements there.
Yes, I know.
So there's some challenges, but I think at least maintaining that 10% return to Care and Fair was critically important to the committee, and at the last meeting reaffirmed by the board. So I think really the question is between option A and B. But of course, if we could do more, I mean, it's up to you to look at option C and consider putting more. But that's, the question is A, B, or sometimes C. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll look to our other board members for comments. Excuse me, committee members. Indra.
Is the how is Ava getting credit for this? I mean, this is kind of a super good thing. And is it, because I heard the word rebate and then it's just like passe, it's another rebate. But is there some way that Ava is putting the word out or marketing this to show how we are being about abundance versus scarcity and resharing? Because I think I've been reading Tom Steyer's attacks on PG&E and then there was an article about the CAISO and they talked about all the free solar that we're losing, revenue. And I just feel like they're trying to turn this whole discussion into a scarcity discussion. And this is kind of about Ava talking about renewables and abundance. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to turn that into Ava credit.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Ava has in the past, so that's not part of this item in particular. This is really it's a very narrow decision,
No, I
right?
understand.
I will still answer your question though. And in the past, Ava has done an email or a postcard to the recipients of some of these larger credits to let them know to look for it on a bill and to kind of highlight that. There's also been things like press releases. So yes,
So
we
we'll
have
be
tried
pressing.
to sort of toot our own horn when we can.
Good.
But keeping in mind also you want, if you're giving those credits, you don't want to spend a lot of capital also then advertising those credits, right? Let's make sure that the credits are going to the right spot.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, sure.
Thank you. I just, I just wanted to know the percentage of the population of the San Joaquin and Stockton areas that were newly joined versus the other, our other communities that are already present. And see, from what I remember from a chart, it was a fairly large population, but as far as Carafera, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I don't have those numbers at the top of my head. I do think, Stockton has a fairly significant portion, percentage of care customers compared to our overall customer base. I am not going to speak out of in error and give you a percentage, but it is a higher percentage in Stockton than in our other territories. Not less so in Lathrop, but Lathrop is also a very, very small city in comparison. Stockton is in our top 3.
All right, thank you very much. Any public comment regarding the item, unless we have some other comments online, from our members? Okay, so we'll hold and we'll go to public comment if we can. Adrian, I think we might have a public comment speaker in the room, and then we'll go online.
Thank you. Daniela Suarez, you have 3 minutes to recognize for 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniela. I'm with Local Clean Energy Alliance. I just want to express appreciation to the CAC for being supportive with the Carafera bill credits, as well as staff for recommending equal bill credits for all customers, including Stockton and Lathrop customers. We want to emphasize that we do want Ava to continue to give the bill credits to all customers. However, we also want Ava to develop a long-term solution because, as a member of the CAC just mentioned, affordability is an extreme issue right now for low-income households. So we want this to be an important short-term problem or a solution to the problem, but also we want a long-term solution to be developed for low-income households who really struggle with energy bills. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica Kovar, recognize for 3 minutes.
Jessica Tovar with the Local Clean Energy Alliance. Fully support that all Carafera customers get $80 credit off their bills. I did have a question. Maybe this is for you, Kelly. If I'm assuming that when people receive a bill credit, it's off of the line item for electricity. And I'm wondering if somebody's bill was $50 and you issued an $80 bill credit, does the remaining $30 carry over on the next electricity bill? I'm just curious how that actually works. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, are you able to respond to that question?
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. So it depends in large part. PG&E's billing system depending on the amount that is left over, will either apply it to other parts of the bill, be it the gas portion of the bill or to the delivery portion of the bill, or it will stay as a credit on the AVA portion, just depending on the amounts.
Right, thank you very much. Any comments online from the public?
Yes, Audrey Ichinose, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Audrey Ginose. I am a member of the California Alliance for Community Energy and the People's Clean Power Alliance, formerly the East Bay Community Clean Power Alliance. I just wanted to underscore how important it is to, explain to the customers why their bill, why they're getting the bill credit. To emphasize, as the vice chair said, the aim is to give back. I mean, to include low-income people in this public enterprise. To stress that we're all in this together, and that they're not forgotten. So I really I could go. I think both $80 and kind of a differential between 100 and a quarter for Stockton can be equally good, and in making people feel included and aware that they are part of this CCA, and that we need that pipeline to give information. Encourage people to be more efficient in their energy usage and all those other things that our agency stands for. So either way, the bill credit is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further hands raised at this time.
All right, with that, I'd like to move the item, if I do have the privilege as the chair, to move this item, staff recommendation, $80 credit to all Care and Fair customers.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Langley. Any other dialogue?
May I add a comment before we vote?
Yes, Member Harper.
I just wanted to state that I also support that all customers get the $80 bill credit, and I believe it to Member Souza's question. I believe Stockton, it's about 41% of our customer base that is receiving energy assistance through those programs. So, as I've mentioned before, people are struggling to afford their energy bills here, and we have an enormous number of households that have pretty substandard living conditions and are in utility debt. And because of misinformation, I've heard from a lot of people over this past year who've opted out of AVA, believing that they're being charged more. So I think that beyond kind of just doing the right thing and not pitting low-income customers against each other with variable amounts, it's worth using the bill credit as a way to show up for this new customer base, as a way to help keep people enrolled. So for all those reasons, yeah, thanks for the analysis from staff, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Member Harper. I have to make sure we bring out a team out there to communicate the wins and this opportunity to really engage and support those members the community members who decided to stay in, and hopefully highlight, we're trying to do our best here to reinvest in our communities and make energy affordable, which is the goal of AVA Community Energy as I know it. Other comments from the committee? Jim.
I'm speaking in favor of the motion, but another item that you did not include, Kelly, of why it makes more sense is the people in Stockton have been paying 5 cents a kilowatt hour or 5% higher electricity for the first part of the year. So than people here. So they need more help in addition to having to pay for air conditioning. But I speaking in favor.
And Jim, can you or maybe Kelly speak to the 5-cent differential? Is this more around the?
It's the differential that AVA's charging
for Bright Choice from PG&E. So if somebody was on PG&E, they're paying, or if they were on AVA, they would be paying 5 cents less. So since they were on PG&E for 3/4 of the year, they're paying 5% more for those prior 3/4 than AVA customers.
So they were getting a discount now, they're getting a discount now before they're paying 5 cents more per kilowatt per se.
The discount helps. Retroactively, they were paying more than the rest of the AVA customers on Bright Choice.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Their comments? Oh, yes, Peter.
I definitely support this item. I do have a question that I should have asked earlier, but if I can still ask it. Is AVA, I realize that Lathrop and Stockton are new, and we don't usually really have what I'm about to talk about as a problem next to the bay. But has AVA thought about looking at incentives for home retrofit to reduce the need for summer AC? So that they can use less energy?
If staff wants to speak to it, I know that Bayren is working towards home retrofits, installations for the walls and
Right.
ceilings. So they're doing that right now. Bayren is a good resource to help. Bayren, I don't know what REN stands for, but Bay and REN, REN has a program to really insulate and working through like a program, like you get up to $10,000 in resources for $1,000. So I don't know what else AVA's doing, but I think there are programs to look into support.
Well, PG&E used to have a program like that. And I haven't seen it in quite a while, but it seemed to me that it was useful. Everyone knows that retrofits are useful in terms of reducing energy use. I'm just wondering whether, especially CARE and FARA customers in the Valley could use that and whether we are promoting it.
I'll pass it to Kelly if you want to speak to it, if you can.
Yeah, sure. Just to be brief, because I know we're trying to move this item forward. This sort of item would be covered under the customer programs roadmap that I think is coming up later on in the agenda.
So speaking about the customer service roadmap or strategy roadmap, really look at how AVA can support our community further.
Right.
I think that's one thing that staff was working through. And I think it's been stalled at the moment because of the lead consulting concern. So I think part of that roadmap is really finding ways to support our community or our customers further, such as those methods.
Thank
I
you.
think we're doing more there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from our members? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With that, we'll take a roll call vote.
Can you please repeat your motion?
To support staff recommendation of option A, the $80 credit to CARE and FARA customers.
Great, thank you.
Is that as such? That's Cynthia's understanding too, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And we would need a second for this motion.
Cynthia was my second.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Okay, thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Yes.
Member Balkison,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Lakshman,
Yes.
Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Harper, thank you. Member Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
that's unanimous.
Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate everybody's support there. We look forward to supporting those credits. I mean, seeing those credits with the my Vice Chair Souza will report back on the action and hopefully can be excited about it too with us, right? Woo! All right. So we'll move on to item C6. The CAC guide update and terms extensions is a board consent item, but something that's very important to our CAC. So it updates the CAC guide to include unincorporated San Joaquin County, as well as other operational improvements, extends all current terms to 4/30/2026. With that, pass it over to Kate.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chair Hernandez. So I'll be presenting this item today. I'll try to go through it pretty quickly, and then I'm happy to field any questions. Next slide, please, Adrian. So to summarize, these are just bird's eye view of the recommendations that we'll be bringing to the board tomorrow on Wednesday. So in broad strokes, we are recommending to the board that we add another seat to the Community Advisory Committee, bringing it to a total of 13 seats. This is mostly to reflect now the inclusion of unincorporated San Joaquin County, which joined our JPA. The second will be some administrative updates to the CC guide as well to just improve overall operational efficiency. And then third, we are recommending to the board that we extend all current CAC terms through April 30th, 2026. So next slide, please. So I don't think I have to spend too much time on here considering the audience, but this is just a quick overview of the CAC and just to highlight the current structure that we have today, which is 10 regionally allocated seats, 2 at-large seats, and then 5 alternate seats. And then we currently have a few vacancies, mostly on the alternate front, and then also a regional member from San Joaquin County due to a resignation. So next slide, please. So the CAC guide is a board-approved document that the board first put in place in 2019. It provides an overview of eligibility requirements for CAC members, the appointment process, and the structure and basic composition of the CAC. It's been updated a couple times in the past few years. This has mostly been to accommodate adding new jurisdictions to our territory. So you can see the growth of the CAC and some of these updates over the years, as well as some other kind of structural changes as well. And then in 2024, of course, unincorporated San Joaquin County joined our JPA. So a big reason that we are before you today is to recommend some changes to now reflect unincorporated San Joaquin County into our CAC composition. Next slide, please. So these names should look pretty familiar to everyone here. This is just a current snapshot of CAC membership, including appointment dates, current term start and end dates, and then everyone's eligibility for future terms. So this is just here for reference. Next slide, please. So the composition and structure of the CAC put in place by the board of directors is determined by kind of regions. Each region is created by these jurisdictions outlined here. In the light orange, it's the current seat allocations mapped onto the current JPA vote shares. So these allocations are based on JPA vote shares that are then based on annualized load for each jurisdiction. So that's how we came to those numbers. The light orange, those are JPA vote shares before the addition of unincorporated San Joaquin County. In the nice bright poppy orange here, we have our proposed new seat allocations with the addition of another seat to San Joaquin County and the updated JPA vote shares as well. Next slide, please. So to summarize our recommendations here again in a little bit more detail, again, adding another seat to the overall committee. Recommendation 2, a number of administrative updates to the guide. You can see there's both a red line and a clean draft version of the guide in your agenda packets. So all of those red lines would be included in this recommendation. Substantively, I think some of the biggest changes are we're trying to create more standardized terms. As you can see from the reference slide with all the different terms and appointments, there's a lot of variation in appointment dates, start, end dates, all of that. So we want to kind of standardize all the terms with like set start and end dates, with May 1st now being the start of CAC terms. So that gets into recommendation 3, which is extending all current CAC terms to April 30th, 2026. All CAC members right now either have terms ending at the end of this year or sometime in mid-March. So this will apply to all current CAC members. And then current terms will then end April 30th, 2026. Next slide, please. And then lastly, just summarizing some next steps after this item is reviewed and approved by the board of directors. So we are planning to launch a CAC application and recruitment period in January of 2026. It will stay open for a little over a month. And then ideally, as we are standardizing terms and kind of appointment cycles, ideally the board of directors will consider and approve any new CAC appointments and of course reappointments at their April 2026 meeting. And then those terms would then start May 1st. So then all those terms will align going forward. And then we'll of course do an orientation for new members. And standardizing these terms also allows then for creating a structure of staggered terms as well, as we can have that kind of alignment going forward. So I think next slide, please. I think that's it. Yep, that is it for me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kate. We'll probably take a few questions here from the committee and then going in the room and then going online with clarifying questions. We'll take that public comment and then we'll see what kind of recommendation the CAC aligns with, hopefully to move this forward in some capacity. I'll look to Indra to my left.
I just have a question about the new JPA vote share. Can you explain about the vote share? Because I'm seeing it's changing north. North is reducing its share, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so these vote shares are taken, directly from like the JPA. So just kind of copy and pasted and aggregated by region from there. So these are just based on annual kind of load share for each jurisdiction. So what you're noticing there with the North region kind of losing a certain percentage, that's because we added the jurisdiction of unincorporated San Joaquin County. So you see kind of a reshuffling of percentages there, where then the San Joaquin County region has grown a bit with the addition of the new jurisdiction. So some other regions then lost a little bit of their percentage.
So what actionableness does that have? I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, what does it mean in real terms? A vote share?
The vote share kind of relates to something in the JPA where jurisdictions can vote based off of basically load size, do a weighted vote, which I don't want to harp too much on that. That's mostly just relevant for the fact that our CAC seat allocations are based off of that vote share. So I just copied the vote shares from the JPA, and then as they kind of come together, staff is recommending that because of the larger vote share in San Joaquin County now, that that region should then probably have a larger presence on the CAC, thus the addition of a new seat. Yeah, that's what staff is recommending. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Just for the vote share perspective, there's normally you have the board of directors vote by one person, but if we got very nuanced, they could vote by shares, but it have to be a motion by a board of directors to vote by shares versus by the person or the representative. So that's a nuance that hasn't really been played into in the history of the organization as of now. But that is sort of a backup. If they feel they can get their motion approved in a different way, they can vote by shares.
And it makes sense that it's with the load.
Yes. Other questions in the room? Online?
Oh, go ahead.
1 second. Yes, Member Harper? Did you want to speak to it?
Oh, yeah, I just had a quick question about the appointment process and making sure I was understanding it right. From what I understood, it was typically run through the local jurisdictions. Like there were recommendations that are voted on through, like, for example, the city council on membership. And I was just wondering if that is changing here. I wasn't clear about that.
Yes, good question, Member Harper, because I know that your original appointment was made through the Stockton City Council, but it has been the norm here at AVA for the board of directors to make appointments. In your case, it was to kind of speed up the process and get someone appointed to the city. The board of directors allowed Stockton City Council to make your appointment, but going forward, your seat on the committee, that will all go through the board of directors, like it does for all the members here. So yeah, that's just kind of our standardized process for CAC appointments, is that those go through and are approved by the board of directors.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I know that Jim and I were appointed by the Conference of Mayors a few years ago, and I think it's going to become more like the board of directors are going to be appointing us or appointing the CAC.
Yeah.
Jim, you have a question?
Is an at-large term are there still at-large terms?
Yes, we're making no changes to kind of at large terms or anything like that.
Okay. And the other question was, I know and I don't know that it's happening here, but as AVA expanded, there were obviously more board members, but I don't think there was an equivalent increase in the CAC number of CAC members. Is that happening here as well?
In this proposal, we're just recommending to add one more seat to the CAC. And in other iterations, as additional jurisdictions have joined the JPA, we have expanded the size of the CAC as well, but it's a smaller number of members than the board of directors.
And is there a logic behind having a smaller number of members on the CAC than on the board?
I mean, they're different bodies, I think, on the CAC, you know, you're representing communities and regions as opposed to kind of representing one singular jurisdiction.
Question?
And
Oh, good.
No, Peter, yes, well, Jim still has the floor.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
1 second, go ahead, Jim.
I noticed you have me rolling off at the end of 2026. I think it was
25.
25.
25.
That's when your current term ends, but you are eligible to serve another term.
Well, I have a question about that. It says the term limits for at-large members are 2 terms. So if Ed and Jim are completing 2 terms, does that mean they're off or they're eligible for 2 more terms because it's only starting now?
So this goes back to a resolution from the previous time that we updated the CAC guide, when the board of directors did set a 2-term limit just for at-large members, with the caveat being that current at-large members would be able to stay on for an additional term past that term limit. So both Member Lutz and Chair Hernandez are eligible to serve another term as at-large members, but then going forward, it will be a 2-term maximum.
And that's the same for the other members who represent an area who have 4 terms. They're then,
Regional members are able to serve up to 4 terms.
but then we have a very valuable member serving 4 terms. Is she now, because it was just being done, is she allowed to have another term because it isn't retroactive or?
We've had I think the 4-term limit for a while now.
Okay.
So yeah, according to the current guide and practice, Member Landry will term out at the end of her current term.
But we need to have a goodbye party then.
Yeah.
I think if we extend it towards April 30, 2026, that would be the goodbye
That
party.
would be the
Yeah.
goodbye, yes.
So we have
Yeah.
time to celebrate honor Cynthia's
All right.
legacy from the start, but also board members sometimes do their own things. Like, let's just throw her for another couple of years, you know, board members, and sometimes make the rules of like, oh, she wants to stay for another, we'll reappoint her through the process. Sometimes different boards say up to 12 years, and well, let me submit a new application for another 12 years. Things happen. I've seen very much things happen on the fly.
Well, this seems to be governed by some
Yes,
rules
so
here.
that seems like the rules at the moment. So I think we'll be extending through April 30, 2026. And going back to the question about regional versus city, and there's a challenge, of course, having already cities and different regions have 21 board members. I think it's a little much there to manage 21 board members versus our 12 to 13, which is more manageable. I understand there's like normally I'm gonna start teaching in the new year, so I'll be coming off at Chippewa College, and the one teacher says she has a 2-pizza rule. You shouldn't have more people in the room that you can feed with 2 pizzas for a decision. So I think I'm enjoying that idea. So it might be a much to have more members. Could be interesting, but I don't think we'll be happy at the end of the day. We might be hangry. With that, any other comments online? Back in the room. All right, I'll take some public comment if there is any. Adrian?
There are no hands raised at this time.
All right, so we have staff recommendations, 3 recommendations. I'm not sure what this committee wants to do.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to move forward with the staff recommendations. I second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Member Bakusun. So I understand recommendation 1 is to update the CC Regional C allocations to include unincorporated San Joaquin County, which results in allocating an additional committee seat to the San Joaquin County region. That's one recommendation. The other recommendation is to administrative updates to the CC guide as stated in the red line CC guide, including standardizing terms. All terms will begin May 1st of the appointment year, adding flexibility to application periods, minimum application appointment process per year. And the third recommendation, extend all current CC terms to April 30, 2026. So that's the first and second. Any other feedback or concerns about this motion? Just one thing for myself, I just trying to understand. So understanding we have current terms are 4. Generally speaking, you're looking to have everybody can go up to 4, but the at-large is at least most 2 terms at the moment. And I think I heard you say at-large could go for another term. In this case, it could be at most 3 for the at-large.
In the case of you, Chair Hernandez, and you, Member Luce,
Specifically.
because this change happened after you were already finishing up your first term, so the board at the time thought that it would be an equitable approach then to put this kind of future-looking instead of retroactive.
Thank you. And then after, so going through this appointment process, those, do you see where the entire CSE would change? Or do you think there's just more about a process to reappoint those who are interested in serving again versus those who not? How do you see that unfolding? Would there be like everybody on the CSE needs to reapply? Or do they just express interest to be reappointed?
Yeah, well, we're still like, I think, putting finishing touches on that exact process. In previous years, it's been, you know, a member will state their interest in being reappointed, but that always has to be considered and approved by the entire board of directors. So nothing will change about that process. Members will probably going forward fill out just a form to confirm their interest in reappointment, as well as kind of reconfirm their eligibility. So make sure that they're meeting those eligibility requirements, that kind of thing as well.
So just saying, I had the members here that were in your previous slide, everybody wants to be reappointed. Would that be possible? Except for, yeah, I think in this case, except for Cynthia, I think she would be the only exclusion that couldn't serve another term.
Sorry.
That's okay. So assuming that everybody on the CC wants to reappoint it, excluding Cynthia, everybody could do so.
Yes, that would be up to the board of directors.
Okay. And so if there was any other interest, let's say Cynthia wanted to serve another term, she would be termed out.
Yes, she will be turned out at the conclusion of her term.
Okay, may I ask Member Landry a quick question? Member Landry, would you like to be considered to serve another term of another 2 years? So that would maybe make a friendly amendment to include that in our motion to staff.
Well, I wouldn't mind, you know.
It feels good.
Yeah, well, I do feel special, but yes, I wouldn't mind. I
So
mean,
based on this adjustment to our CAC membership, I would ask for the first and second to make maybe a friendly, I see Member Bapusun's going to jump in, so please.
Well, I think you make a good point. If we're readjusting everything to March 1st or May 1st,
May 1st.
then everybody's going to be on the same cycle. And a lot of times when you have boards, you want to have like a, you know,
Staggering.
yeah. So that's not, is that included in this? Because maybe we should stagger.
It's not part of this proposal specifically, but a key reason also that we want to kind of standardize term start and end dates is then that we could then implement kind of a staggered structure. So then it's every other year. Then we'll have like basically half the CAC up for appointment or reappointment.
Do we want to add that to our motion?
I think staff is going to be working through that.
Okay.
A little bit on the staggering aspect of it, but there also might be this organic turnover. Because I'm not looking to continue after this term or so. So I can focus on some other efforts I'm working through in my elected role in the Eden Health District too.
But are you looking for the second to also support Member Landry?
So the friendly amendment would be to support Member Landry for an additional term. So allow her to extend her term at least one more term if that would be okay with the first and second. So we make that small adjustment to give her the flexibility to choose to be reappointed. And she would be aligned towards that May 30th. And she would have to, of course, certify her interest in that space that Kate had mentioned.
I second.
So I need a first to agree to that?
Yes.
Yes, and the second would be supportive
I
of that.
second, I support that.
Thank you so much. Hopefully that works okay with staff. We just make a small tweak to it.
If I
Yes,
may.
please.
So that would still be up to the discretion of the board to make the
Correct.
appointment.
We're just making the notice there, like if it would be possible to extend that one-time courtesy to Member Landry for her to serve maybe a potential 5th term at most, because I know she's termed up, but we're realigning the group and then be really up to the board to really decide to do that or not based on staff recommendation, just a courtesy to the CAC member.
Sure. So if that amendment were added, then the board could.
Just for
consider-
Cynthia.
Yeah, the board could consider reappointing
Yes,
Member Landry. Okay.
just for that next term.
Does that mess up the request though? Like, should we make it as a separate request or? Because I mean, then they can just approve one thing and then you can talk about the other.
We're just recommendations. They can do whatever they want. So that's okay. Yes, Alex?
Yes, I mean, I think the general idea with when it comes to terms and term limits is that special accommodations aren't to be made to individuals, but your body is welcome to propose what you like, and then the board was at its discretion to make its appointments.
Correct. So I'm just looking to do the special accommodation for one of our members that served since the beginning and this adjustment. And she seems willing to do that. I'm like, that's a long time. All right, any other comments? So with the friendly amendment being accepted, to honor member Landry for a potential another term, a recommendation to take staff recommendations 1, 2, and 3 with the potential for having member Landry serve an additional term. I think that's our motion and seconded as such. I'll see the head nods again. Yes, thank you. Any other comments? All right, we'll do a roll call vote.
Thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Of course.
Member Balkison,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Lockman,
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Passes unanimous.
Thank you very much, everybody. Let's see. And so we're going towards item C7, which is a statement regarding the CAC strategic roadmap. This is a CAC action item. I'm going to pass this to Vice Chair Souza. Or do we have the resolution, the comment there? Yes. So Vice Chair, do you want to speak to what the statement and the work done by this ad hoc body? Or do you want Member Balkison?
Member Balkison.
We coming out of our meeting last time in November, we felt that we wanted to sort of focus on highlighting the good work that the staff is doing, because we felt that maybe it came across that we weren't as positive as we really felt. Our concern, of course, was the contractor, which was really difficult situation. So we wanted to send a letter to the board expressing our appreciation for the staff's effort, and then wanted to highlight what the CAC considers this program, the high priority issues of the program to be. So we put together this letter. Mickey started writing it, and then we had a little meeting, Mickey, Ed, and I, about this, what to say. And so this letter basically talks about the work that we want to make sure that the bottom line is that the roadmap moves forward, because we think it's incredibly valuable getting community input and support on what the priorities are. So we made a list of 9 items that we feel we've heard, and that we wanted to support the board of directors' decision that they made not moving forward with the proposed contractor. And because we feel that's the best course of action for AVA customers and the community. And we wanted to support the overall goal for the customer program strategic roadmap. So we just want to make sure that came across. And then we wanted to talk about, all of us looked online to a policy. There was mention at the board meeting of a policy, kind of a safety policy. And Berkeley has one. I don't know if it's exactly what we're talking about, but it's just that it's a no fear. We wanted there to be no fear in the community from the work we're doing. And so we really support the idea of the board coming up with a policy. But we wanted to make sure that just to emphasize that everyone understands that we respect immigrants at our core, and they are our core, part of our core constituency. And we need to find contractors and consultants that understand that. And so that's what this letter is really about. And I don't know if you want to add something, Ed, or?
No, I just like to read it into the record. If that's okay, if you would like to read it into the record yourself.
Sure. Dear AVA Board, we want to express our appreciation for the efforts of the staff on AVA's customer program strategic roadmap. The CAC considers this program to be a high priority. This work encompasses critical projects, including 1, AVA Bike Electric Rebate Program, 2, AVA Smart Home Charging Managed Sharing Program, 3, AVA Charge DC Fast Charging Sites, 4, Critical Municipal Facilities, 5, Health E-Communities Pilot, 6, Building Efficiency Accelerator, 7, Smart Home Battery, Solar and Storage Incentive Program, 8, the Resilience Hub Initiative, and 9, any new programs that will come out of the public workshops. We support the Board of Directors' decision to not move forward with the proposed contractor. The CAC feels that this is the best course of action for AVA customers and the community. The CAC supports the overall goals of the customer program strategic roadmap, which is structured to attract customers and encourage community input and ownership of AVA's programs. We also agree with the idea of developing a policy or a framework of policies and actions that promote no fear in support for future requests for proposals. Our clear intention is to get the customer program's strategic roadmap back on track as quickly as possible with an organization that respects immigrants as a core constituent. If AVA cannot find a contractor, AVA could consider developing the program in-house. We would like to present this matter as an action item for the greater CAC, serving as an adjunct to the original proposal offered by staff during the November 2025 CAC meeting. Thank you for your attention to this urgent matter. Best regards, the CAC.
Thank you very much. All right, so with that, I would take any clarifying questions from our members, to our members. All right, Vice Chair would like to make a comment.
Yes, I did want to, once again, emphasize that staff really worked hard. And it was tragedy that it turned out the way it did. And, you know, we feel that it was a little bit of a blindside. And in this case, because we are a community organization, that the most important thing is to make clear to everybody that we support the community in every way that we can. And as they are our customers, and that's where our company comes from, is from the community. And without them, we have no company, we have no organization. So we really need to protect our community. And in that case, I think it would be the best path forward to make a policy to protect them and to, as Berkeley did, institute verbiage that speaks to a no fear policy, that somebody has to stand up. And as AVA is a community organization, and we all are Californians, that we have to stand up in some way, shape, or form. And this is a great way to start. So I highly advocate that we institute a policy that specifically speaks to these terms. And if staff ever needs us to help them because of the burden that would be imposed upon this, we would be happy to help them look up anything from good contractors to how to move forward. And that's what we're here for. So this is just specifically a very difficult situation where we felt that staff was just as much a victim of. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll take other comments from the room. Peter.
I really like the letter.
That's a good.
I have one question about one word, which is the word ownership. When we use it in a colloquial way, I know what it means. I'm concerned that somebody might misinterpret it, because obviously, in terms of legal ownership, these are owned by AVA. So I'm just thinking if there's another possible word to use. Participation is one, or I don't have a word at the moment. Maybe staff come up with one that if staff thinks that there's nothing wrong with this word, everybody understands what we mean, that's fine with me.
Buy-in.
Yeah, buy-in, I think is great.
Yeah, this is our document, not staff, so.
I understand.
Thank you, Peter. Correct, with that amendment. Okay, buy-in, thank you. Jim?
Just a a question, and I don't know if staff is prepared to answer it, but what are the tentative plans right now to get are there any tentative plans, and what would be the process to get the strategic roadmap back on the agenda calendar?
That's a great question. Alex, do you have any thoughts around the process to reinvest, or are we going to look to Annie online? Hello, Annie.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So as was mentioned, there was comments made by the board about a policy, which personally as staff, I think is quite critical because this was not a criteria that had ever been laid out in the RFP, and for the sake of transparency, both to bidders as well as to the communities we're serving, it's important that we're clear on what the requirements of government contracting is when we go out to bid and then when we eventually issue that contract. So we will be working towards developing a policy, which will need to go to the board for their approval. And then after that, we would move forward with the next steps in finding an external consultant to support the customer program strategic roadmap. So those are the broad brush steps that need to happen.
And Annie, if I can ask a clarifying question, there was a comment about maybe doing this internally in the letter, or comment about that. Just understanding staff capacity, is that something staff does or does not feel it's in your best interest or time or resources, or you really looked at the recommendation to go external overall?
Yeah, I mean, as we were moving forward we were looking to get external support for this. While I believe staff has the capabilities to do a lot of this work, we do not have the capacity. So if we were to move forward as an internal only effort, we would have to eliminate or delay other projects and initiatives that we're working on.
Thank you. Yes, Member Papasoon.
I just want to add that in conversations I've had with my own mayor, it is unfortunate that it's been 2 years in the making of this program, and then now there's this delay. So I just want to say that I sympathize, and I'm sorry that happened, because I know that you want to get this done. So do we. So I support whatever it does to move forward faster.
Any other comments from members online? Or clarifying questions, excuse me? All right, then with that, I'll take some public comment from those in the room or online.
There are no hands raised at this time.
Perfect. So part of the ask here is to get the CAC members to support this letter with the modification from ownership to buy-in. From my perspective, regarding to, the customer strategic roadmap and the fact that we had a consultant that could have been better vetted by the CSC, and I don't want to vilify staff, but I think it's important to engage us. I appreciate Member Pacheco's bringing it to our attention, because I did not want to support an organization that has enabled persecution of immigrants in our country, which our country has been founded by immigrants, and my family are immigrants, and I'm the first generation to be here in the United States, going through the programs of college and beyond, and being that public elected official. And I really appreciate all the work that's done in our immigrant community and the work they do. So the fact that as a community organization that we would want to support an entity, even though they might be, our contract might be minor, any dollar that goes to persecute anyone is not a dollar that I want to spend. So with that, I'll look to the committee to maybe want to move this forward in some capacity to get the staff on this letter to our board directors, and then our vice chair can bring it to the attention as one of the items that the CAC wants to make sure they have in their possession.
So moved.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll second.
Thank you, Cynthia. Other last comments or feedback?
I feel it's very important to send this letter forward to the board, because it's, as a body that's advising the community, I feel we're not doing our job if we don't say it in writing.
That's right.
Okay. With that, any other comments from our members? 5, 4, 3. Yes, Jim.
Oh, I just wanted to support your observation, Nick, that it's obviously too late now, but as advisory committee, we're the sort of people that I'm not sure that
Closer.
would be able to flag those sorts of issues. And so it would be good to have us, or at least some members, vetting our additional vetting of the RFPs. That
I
the
don't think you can
proposals that
legally
come.
do that though, Jim.
What?
I don't think you can legally do that until they've decided.
There's an element that they can provide, get feedback without disclosing the professionals, but as an advisory committee, I think we could find a way to provide feedback or some additional considerations or sort of help shape that. Well, but we're here to advise, and maybe there's an element of the policy.
Use us, we're here for you.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
the policy itself, we could be supported on an ad hoc basis, that upcoming policy. That'll be drafted by the board.
Ed, may I make a comment to that?
Yes,
Since
ma'am.
you did sort of start your comment about staff. My own personal opinion, this is not the opinion of the board, is that staff should not be doing this form of vetting without a clear policy to direct us. And I would encourage the CAC to sort of take that into account and appreciate that though current staff may share similar viewpoints, not all staff may. And they may have a different vetting criteria, and it is not on staff to determine that. That is something that should be a transparent policy that is approved by the board, clear to all of our community members as well to bidders, what the criteria are to contract with AVA. And so
That's
I
excellent.
appreciate the comment that you're here to support us. I do want to recommend that you rethink this idea that the CAC could do better at vetting, because we need to have clear, transparent, approved criteria. That is not something that either staff or the CAC without board direction should be doing.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever said the word better, but I think we can collaborate maybe. But I think I'll lean into Member Balkasoon. You have a
No, I just want to say that I actually applaud that approach to have a full, clear policy. And I think, sometimes you learn from things, and this is a good learning. And I really appreciate that the board's willing and wanting to move forward with that. And I think it makes it less personal and makes it fair, and I support that. I just also think that the CAC is just saying, we're here for you, because we felt like last meeting, I don't think we felt like you thought we were there for you, but we are. So I support the policy.
Yeah, we support a clear, concise policy for our organization. Mickey.
Thank you. As far as the letter and presenting to the board, there are two things in this letter that I'm reading as the highest priority. One is to get the projects, the roadmap back on track. And the second is to develop a policy. And the wording, from what I understand, is something to do with the no fear. And so whoever develops that policy should include no fear into the communities. And that should be clear enough. I don't know if it is clear enough, but something along those lines to protect the community.
I agree.
I can't hear you.
I mean, that's in the letter, and we're going to forward that to the board, right? So that's what we're voting on, right? Is that?
Correct. So I think
Thank you, Mickey. Sorry if I.
Yes, so I think we're moving, remind me, we had a first and second to move this item or not yet?
We already did.
We did, correct. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other comments?
Do we, yes.
Cynthia?
Based on what I just heard, both from staff and my colleague here, do we need to, I know we're moving the letter forward, but should we say anything about a policy, developing a policy? It's in the letter,
So
okay.
I said
I'm
we also
sorry.
agree with the idea of developing the policy or a framework of policies and actions that promote no fear and support of future requests for proposals. So,
Berkeley is very clear about saying policy and actions.
all right, so seeing no hands, no further comments, I will call for the votes. Adrian?
Great, thank you very much. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Yes.
Member Balkison,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
Consistent with my vote last month, I vote no.
thank you. Member Lockman,
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lopes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Very much appreciate the diversity of perspectives, opinions around policies and actions, and it's good to have a meeting of the minds at some point, but of course, we need to be clear on the actions of this organization and the recommendations as such. Moving forward, we have CC member and staff announcements, but excuse me, C9 ad hoc committee update. In our packet, we have another report out from one of the committees. So I think with that, it goes to the Energy Affordability Ad Hoc Committee meeting summary. So Indra or Jim, do you want to speak to the meeting that you had on November 18? And maybe the topics discussed. It's in the agenda
There
packet.
is, hold on one second.
Yes.
We have the, hold on.
You're gonna bring it up. It's on the left. Page,
After the statement regarding the CSA strategic roadmap,
page
item C8, which I'll bring up,
page 46 in your
Oh, the
packet.
financial adjustments. Yeah.
is the 2026 financial adjustments.
You're up. Did you have anything?
Saying financial adjustments.
Wait, are we missed?
Yeah, looks
Yes.
like we skipped an item.
Oh, I'm sorry very much. Am I sorry? Whew, I was jumping 3 items ahead. My apologies. Thank you. Okay, no, earlier I said C10, sorry. C8. Oof, this might be one of my second to last meetings, so okay, good. Hand it off. C8, 2026 financial adjustments, including value proposition board action item. Approve a portfolio of actions to address 2026 financial forecast. Thank you. And I thought we were gonna get out of here early.
All right, Adrian, that is going to be me presenting. This is Annie Henderson, Chief Customer Officer at Ava Community Energy. If we're all ready, I will move into the deck. This presentation will be delivered by Howard on Wednesday. It was a very cross-functional effort to put this package of information together. Both myself and Kelly took part in it, so I will do my best to represent the information, but just know that on Wednesday it will be presented by Howard. We can go along to the next slide. In fact, if you can go one more, please, Adrian. And I'll try and be fairly concise. It's a very dense, there's a lot of information here, so I'd encourage the group, and especially because I can't necessarily see you all, being that I'm remote, I'd encourage you to write down any questions and I'll go through the entirety of the presentation and then we can come back for clarifying questions and then comments. But with that, I will start in the introduction. So there was information provided at last month's board meeting and some additional follow-up around value proposition provided in the December Executive Committee, and this was all sort of instigated by some financial information that came forward as part of the October 2025 ERA filing. And this is about rates, but also PCIA or I can't believe I just forgot, indifference adjustment, the power charge difference adjustment reform. And so those two components together led to staff presenting about the financial impacts of what we're looking at through the calendar year 2026. So several of you are probably aware that our financial or our fiscal year runs from July 1 through June. But the ERA filing is done on a calendar basis. So there's a little bit of following the dots as we go through here, as we talk about calendar year versus fiscal year. We are now providing to the board updated information based on what we heard in November and seeking their approval for a set of actions. We do want to note that while some of these recommendations are undesirable, they will help ensure financial stability in order to continue to provide long-term value and services to our customers. It was noted earlier that, we don't have an agency without our customers. Absolutely true. We also don't have an agency if we're not financially solvent. And so we're trying to put forward some options that will be hard decisions for the board, but it is all with an eye to financial stability so that we can continue to serve our customers. And the highlight is, or maybe the silver lining, we're in this position because rates overall will be going down significantly for our customers. So from a customer's perspective, 2026 is looking great. From an agency financial perspective, it is looking like there's some tough decisions to be made. Next slide, please. So brief background on what we presented last month. So for fiscal year 2025, so that ended June 2025, we had a surplus. That's the $130 million, 90% of which the board already decided to put into a rate stabilization fund, 10% to the CARE/FARA bill credits. But we are looking at these rates going down by approximately 30%. And because of that, and with the projections for this fiscal year through the end of calendar year 2026, which is in fact part of the next fiscal year, we are looking at a deficit of roughly $250 million. So in November, the board did direct staff to move forward with our rate setting policy set of activities that we basically hold these public meetings. We take public comment as part of potential value proposition changes. The board did not move a motion on two other staff recommendations that were about essentially putting 100% of those surplus funds into a rate stabilization fund, i.e. not using them towards bill credits. There was also a recommendation to reduce the local development fund budget by $10 million for monies that are not earmarked for any particular initiative or activity. They essentially didn't take motions on either of those, but did ask for additional information. And so we strive to provide additional information with this deck. Okay, we can go to the next slide, which is it might take a second to digest, but what you're looking at, the orange part of this bar chart is what AVA charges our customer. The yellow part is the PCIA, which we end up covering the cost of that for our customer. So it is essentially an expense to AVA. Then we have sort of that blue line represents more or less, the equivalent Bright Choice discount. The actual percentage discount is shown as this dashed line, and that is reflective of the axes on the right, but it shows essentially how much below PG&E we are. And so in 2026, because PG&E's rates, which we're indexed to, are coming down so significantly, and the PCIA is increasing, it just makes that orange bar squeezed that much tighter, which means we do not collect as much revenue. So we are seeking to reduce the Bright Choice generation rate by 40 to 50% from 2025 levels. That is to account for the index change to PG&E as well as the PCIA. And then overall, those generation rates, including the PCIA, are expected to decrease by about 32%. The T&D, the transmission and distribution charges from PG&E, which of course we don't have any control over, but it is an important part of the bill. And we know that our customers are not, it is a rare customer that is looking at their bill and saying Avis charges, PG&E's charges. They just look at what do I owe? And that includes these delivery rates. And those are set to increase by about 4% from 2025 levels. So in the end, what a customer will experience is roughly an 11% reduction in their bill from 2025 levels. You can go to the next line. So when we put this all together and we forecast out, you see here in this chart, it's a mixture of actuals, because of course, the July through, I think it is July to September are actuals for the 2025. Then you start to go into forecasts. So it's a mixture here. And as we get further out in time, of course, we have less certainty. One big uncertainty is that there is a second round of PCIA reform. It's called Track 2. And that is not accounted for here. But we are accounting for things like load growth from new territories, as well as potential data centers that are information we get from the CEC about forecasted data center load. So that's why you see the total energy operating expenses continues to go up in time. Also, it looks significantly higher in the last two columns because those are full calendar years, whereas the other columns are 6 months. So keep that in mind. I also want to note that the numbers at the bottom, the total net revenues, those aren't cumulative year over year. They are for that year. So by 2028, we think we'll be back in the black, but we have a lot of catch up to do in 2026 and 2027. So for calendar year 26, about $364 million deficit. But when you combine that with the stronger performance in the first half of the year, or in the first half of our fiscal year, it gets to about $250 million in deficit. And then I'm just looking through the notes here. These numbers assume that we're maintaining the value proposition of 5% for Bright Choice and a quarter penny for Renewable 100 Premium. It does assume no incremental local development funding. So in the past, in early years, we put maybe 5 million or so towards local development. I think our highest year was when we did about 22 million in local development as part of our normal budget cycle, and then added another 15 million at the end of the fiscal year once there was surplus identified. So, we have historically contributed to the local development fund, but these numbers assume a 0% allocation. It also assumes a 0% contribution to the rate stabilization fund and the reserves. And earlier tonight, the chair made a reference, and I don't have it verbatim memorized, but there was a comment made about $100 million in the rate stabilization fund. That is not correct. You'll see on a future slide what is already in that balance, what is being contributed from the FY25 surplus, and then what we have in reserves. Those are two different things, rate stabilization fund and reserves, but I'll speak to it more as we go through. If you could go to the next slide, it just simply shows what we presented to the board in November with the cumulative value, pulling out these bill credits. So now we're at, okay, we know we're 250 million short. We can account for about 215 million, but clearly that does not fully bridge the gap. So can we go to the next slide, please? So we went back and did some additional diligence and thought through 3 different scenarios. I will jump ahead and let you know that our recommendation is scenario B. So as I talk through this, I may focus more on that scenario than the others. But as you can see, we're looking to utilize the entirety of the rate stabilization fund, which is just under 150 million. That comes from about, you'll see in another slide, 35 million from a previous year, and then that 90% of the 130 million from FY25 surplus. The next line is value proposition. So decreasing, can you go up one? Thanks. Decreasing the Bright Choice discount to 0.5% and increasing the premium to 1.5 cents. There are detailed slides for each of these. I'll call them financial levers. And so I'll go into the details there, but we will talk about renewable energy credit procurement targets and how a reduction would be impacted, local development fund reduction, operating expenditure reduction, and then use of reserves. Reserves being different from the rate stabilization fund. The reserves are those things that are essentially, a giant earthquake hits, we need to have money set aside to continue to provide service if we can, or, other kind of catastrophic events. And I'll tell you more about what our policy is and where we stand in relation to that policy now and where we would if under these different scenarios. So you can see in scenario A, it gives us actually a bit of a buffer. We would cover more under scenario A than what we are forecasting that deficit gap to be, but B and C, get us there. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty in things in terms of energy costs and where the market goes, but based on our forecast, this is what we are recommending as the sort of prudent fiscal approach for the agency. There are some other adjustments. Other sensitivities of the above measures could be considered. We presented value proposition information at the executive committee meeting, and there was strong sentiment, I'd say, from the executive committee members not to go to a 0% discount. We are not presenting, nor was it discussed, but we could always be more expensive than PG&E for Bright Choice. There are other CCAs that have been more expensive than PG&E. That is not something that we are recommending under scenario B, but it is an option. There is, some money could potentially come out of the sale of an AVA-owned real estate, and then we could go back and the board could contemplate the bill credits because they have not yet been applied to customer bills. But again, what we're recommending in the scenario and looking for direction and action from the board are these items in the table. So we can go to the next slide, please. The rate stabilization fund and on-bill credits. So this is just going back to what was in the fund already. So that's 32 million. I think I said 35. So it's 32 million. And then we have the surplus of 130 million. 90% million is allocated for the bill credits. So that's how we get to the 149.5 million in the rate stabilization fund. And then, we do need the board's authorization for the CEO to utilize the full extent of the rate stabilization fund. That would take it down to 0. So that cushion, that safety net would be fully utilized and be down to 0. Can we go to the next slide, please? The next one, I feel this group is probably pretty familiar with. We have been through a value proposition change multiple times before, but we do have a policy that indicates the steps, the public engagement that staff should take as part of this. So we did run 2 webinars and we opened up for public comment. Kelly participated in both of those webinars. We received very few public comments, and essentially it was folks saying, we want to see lower electricity rates and requests for AVA to consider use of new clean energy sources. So there wasn't any, those are all included as an appendix to this report, so folks can take a look at those. And then we'll go to the next slide, which continues our discussion about the value proposition, just laying it out in, if you could go to the next slide, Adrian. Thank you. Scenarios A, B, and C again, and what that equates to. That's essentially increased revenue because we are not offering as deep a discount, or we are collecting more through a higher premium with Renewable 100. Next slide, please. And then we break it down so that you can see, well, what does it mean if we had a 4% discount? So essentially a reduction by 1%, right? So we would have a 4% discount. That would bring in about $6.3 million in additional revenue. And then you can continue to look down the chart and see what that means. It is showing up to a 1% premium for Bright Choice, but that, of course, is not something that staff is recommending, nor have we received initial indication that there is board interest in not having at least a small discount to PG&E for our Bright Choice service. Similarly, with Renewable 100, you can see if we went from a quarter penny to a half a penny, it would bring in an additional 6.6 million, and you can sort of track down the final rightmost table, just sort of combines those in different permutations and says what the total contribution of additional revenue would be. I think we can go to the next slide, the next slide is addressing a question that was brought up by Vice Chair Gonzalez. He asked about, does PG&E have an equivalent to Renewable 100? They do. It's called Solar Choice. It's a little different in that customers could elect, and I'll say that in the past tense and explain why. They could elect whether 50% of their usage or 100% of their usage came from solar power. And I'm using past tense because this is closed to new customers. It's at capacity. They're not allowing new signups. So in that way, it isn't a comparable product, but I think it's the best thing we can point to. The customers that move on to Solar Choice, like customers that are not with a CCA, they remain with PG&E, but they move on to Solar Choice, they also must pay a PCIA. And so they have varying vintages. But depending on what vintage you are, the premium for the PG&E Solar Choice product at 100% is anywhere from 3 to 7 cents per kWh. That is compared to what we are recommending under scenario B, 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour over PG&E's standard rates. So we can go to the next slide, please, which is, again, just restating what the recommendation is, but then also showing over time what our value proposition has been for each of the two current products. Can we go to the next slide, please? And then we wanted to represent that in the webinars that we did for the public, we represented it as an average bill. So it was dollars, but often because we think that is more what the average person thinks about. With our board, we often talk about the cost per kilowatt hour or kWh. And so that's what this is representing. And the important part to point out here is the green column, the left one, leftmost, that is the tallest, are the current rates, average rate. For residential, I believe this is an average for a time of use customer, which does have peak and off-peak rates, but this is the blended average. So this is what they're paying for Renewable 100 and for Bright Choice. And then you can see under scenario B that even with a 1.5% premium on Renewable 100, there is still a 18% savings for Renewable 100 over what a Bright Choice customer is paying right now for the Bright Choice product. So that 1163, it's 82% of 14.22. But then you can see sort of within the different services, you're still seeing a decrease of Bright Choice under scenario B of 30%, even though we are reducing the discount. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? So the next one is, we're moving on to that next lever, which is renewable energy credit target reduction. In fact, less procurement than reduction. We sort of started with a stake of, okay, how much money savings? Because you have to start somewhere. And then we determined what that associated reduction percentage would be, and then what the resulting renewable energy and carbon-free power content would be. Let's move ahead to the next slide, Adrian. It is a lot of the same info, but with a little bit more detail. And the reason I say I want to look at this is I just want to point out as well that we have these two lower green lines, excess renewable energy and excess hydro that are applied. It's a little over 10%. So if you take those numbers plus the resulting RE plus carbon-free power content, that's 62% in scenario B, you get about 72, 73% carbon-free power for scenario B, as compared to what our current target is 81%. It is also important to point out that in July, the board did approve a change to our compliance methodology. So we are looking at those targets as like a 3-year compliance period. So even though we are saying in the short term, we are asking the board for permission to reduce those targets in order to help bridge this $250 million gap, we still intend to achieve the 2030 100% carbon-free goal. But within that 3-year compliance period, we will still achieve the targets. We just need to address the current financial strain in order to still be around so we can achieve the 2030 goal. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? So now we're on to the local development budget reduction and sort of, where would we come up with reductions of 15, 10, or $5 million? Under scenario B, we're looking at a $10 million reduction. In the current fiscal year, there was an allocation of $4 million that was simply stated as future roadmap programs, meaning we're not sure how we're going to spend that money yet, but as we budgeted out the year, we wanted to continue to allocate into that fund so that as we created our strategic roadmap, we had money to assign to those programs. But given that we don't have a specific program in mind, it makes sense that that would be part of a potential reduction. The other $6 million in scenario B would come from unearmarked funds that are not assigned to a specific program. So in March of this year, I presented to the board a reconciliation of the local development fund. And essentially over time, we have put forward and received, budget allocation for various programs, some of which after a pilot, we did not move forward with because it wasn't effective, or maybe policy changed, maybe a market actor came in and was in a better position to get it done. For a variety of reasons, we have sort of budgeted funds that were put into the local development fund, but we know we're not going to move forward with that initially indicated initiative. And so that is in total $9.5 million. So we thought in order to contribute to this deficit gap and try and bridge that gap, pulling $6 million out of there would be the next place that we would recommend. So again, scenario B is the staff recommendation, and that would be a $10 million contribution to this $250 million budget deficit. Could we go to the next slide, please? So I think we have two more sort of categories to go through. Operating expenditure reduction. So that was actually already baked in to what we presented in November, but it was specifically asked by board members. So we pulled it out and now we're calling it out specifically as scenario B. It's a $3.5 million reduction in operating expenditures. And just to give some context, our operating expenditures are about $48 million. That's just over 5% of our total annual expenses, and only 3% of that is personnel to total annual expenses. But to achieve that $3.5 million reduction, some of that is reduction in personnel costs, but it could also be things like, especially for scenario A, it would be reduction in sort of previously identified efforts, marketing campaigns, consultants that we were looking to bring in specifically around rate design, and then some data integration and AI integration. But under scenario B, we feel we don't need to delay or eliminate any work streams. We can essentially still get everything done, but there would be a $3.5 million reduction in operating expenditure. Under scenario A, there would be things we wouldn't be able to get done. Scenario C, it gives us a little bit more contingency. Can we go to the next slide? Apologies, I realize this is very long, but I'm trying to get as much of this information is crossed as quickly as possible. Is the use of reserves within the AVA financial waterfall. Again, it does get confusing between rate stabilization fund and the reserve fund. Let's focus first on the reserve fund. This is something we've had in place since 2018. Again, it is meant to be sort of for extremely dire emergencies, as it states here. It is important to have these reserves at a certain level to maintain our credit rating. And it is also important for us to be able to go out and get a line of credit, aka borrow cheap money, by having this sort of additional funds on hand. It is different from working capital, which is the operational cash flow, the rate stabilization fund, which is technically deferred revenues. So those are more easily accessible. They don't impact our credit rating. The credit facility is the next resource listed out here. That, of course, comes with an interest rate. And then the last one is reserves. So using reserves versus a line of credit, this was something that board directors brought up in discussion in November. So there is a cost to draw on the line of credit versus the budget interest forecast. And you can see the percentage differential there, but essentially staff recommends using only small amounts of the reserves if necessary. And if all other measures are exhausted, we do not recommend basically debt financing because there is an associated interest rate and it just does not pencil out to be to our advantage. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please, which is focused on our reserve policy. Again, initially established in 2018, amended a bit over the years. It is available on our website under key documents, but our reserve policy is we should have 25 to 75% of annual operating expenses in this reserve. So it's a pretty big range, 25 to 75%, but our target is 50%. The risks of using the reserve is sort of less liquidity, so basically less money available for volatile power market events. We don't know yet what the impacts of the PCI Reform Track 2 are going to be. So there could be a rainier day in the future. And so we want to be certain that we're being thoughtful and judicious with the use of reserves. There is a potential credit rating impact, which again means that we wouldn't have access to as cheap of capital to go out and do things like develop new renewable energy assets that help to decarbonize the grid in our community. But we believe that that is under even the scenarios that are proposed here, we're generally still within a realm where we do not believe credit rating impact would be a large risk. Maybe under C, but certainly not under A, because there's zero use of reserves. But under B, we feel like it's within that cushion. And then, of course, we need to have a plan on how we're replenishing the reserves. And as you could see that in the earlier slide through 2028, or only in 2028, do we come back into the black? So if we're pulling out reserve money now, how are we getting it back in there? Especially as you look over time, our operating expenses increase, as I mentioned before, due from expansion of service to new communities, but also just expansion of load. So new businesses, new data centers coming into our service territory. So right now the reserve balance is $330 million. That's about 36% of our current operating expenses. You can see it drops to 30% as you go into 2028. And then we have figures here just as reference, what would the minimum 25% be? What's the maximum of 75% and what's our target? So can we go to the next slide, which is how do these scenarios sort of plot out in this? So scenario A is we don't use any reserves. Scenario B, we use about $15.5 million reserves. And so when you draw that down from the $330 million, this year we're at 35%. So we're still within that 25 to 75%. By 2028, we're at 29%. Under scenario C, if we use the $41.3 million from reserves, by 2028, we're just barely above that minimum of 25%. And keep in mind that, again, once we pull from reserves, we do need to have a clear plan of how we're going to replenish that. It's something that we've been putting money towards since 2018, and for good reason. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. We did want to highlight for the board in making this decision, sort of the energy market risk. You know, all of these numbers are forecasts. It's based on where the market is right now, what we know right now. The market isn't a fixed thing. Prices can change. And so we wanted to look at like standard deviation based on certain events. And I'll just kind of touch on this at a fairly high level because this is not my area of expertise. But if you need an example of like a geopolitical event, when Ukraine was invaded, the cost of natural gas got a lot higher. And so there was a big market impact. If we have a bad winter, either it's really cold, meaning other parts of the country are using a lot of natural gas for heating, that drives up the price. Or maybe it is just not a very wet winter, and then you roll into a hot summer and you don't have the hydro reserves. There's just not there's no snowpack to melt off. Or you have a hot summer, which is just very high temperatures that often causes some generating facilities to go offline. It also just makes the markets more expensive. And so you can see how all of these different events could potentially increase market costs. And therefore, we are recommending under scenario B, even though it says using 15.5 million from reserves, that the board provide authority to go up to 30 million to cover any sort of market swings. We certainly wouldn't use it if we don't have to, but if we need to use it, we want to have the board authority and understanding and awareness that we would be using those funds. So we can go to the next slide, and it was just, this next one is really just to sort of set the context and a reminder of what we're trying to do and why we're asking the board to make these hard decisions. And we serve 2 counties and 16 cities. It's over 2 million people, nearly 750,000 accounts. Our load is roughly 60-40 commercial residential. If you look at accounts, it's 10% non-residential, 90% residential, but by load, we're 60-40. Of those total load, about 10% is Karen Farah. It's a much higher number when you go by accounts because it is about 25 to 30 plus % of all residential accounts. And then our load is 70% Bright Choice, 30% Renewable 100. You know, we are working in a quasi-competitive environment. Customers can opt out, but we retain 95% of our customers. It's also just by coincidence, we also retain 95% of the load. And so we need to remain competitive in order to add that value to our customers. And we continue to strive to represent our diverse customers and communities' values in terms of rates, programs, power content, and other key energy topics. And so in order to continue to do this good work, we need to be very thoughtful about maintaining a strong financial standing. And that is why we're bringing this forward to the board. And it's, you know, they're not easy decisions. They're not clear-cut decisions. They're hard decisions. But we feel that ultimately this is in the best service of our communities. We can go to the final slide, and then I'll take a sip of water, is our final recommendation. So it just kind of re-summarizes the various things you've seen throughout this deck. I think the new information here is that second right column called net result. So with our recommendation, we would draw down all funds on the rate stabilization fund. We would still, even with the value proposition change, we're still seeing a 20% plus reduction in rates from 2025. We are still seeing a target of 73% for renewable and hydro, so the carbon-free target. And that is just for this year. Again, we're in a 3-year compliance period. Even with a $10 million reduction in local development budget, there's still about $92 million remaining in that fund. with the $3.5 million operating expenditures, just sort of giving it a reference point of what our total operating expenditures are. And then with the reserves, the use of 15 to 30 million, 30 million being the cap, 15 is what we think we'd need. There remains 300 to 315 million in our reserve account, which we feel should maintain our credit rating and our ability to sort of get additional financing and participate, show strong financials in the capital markets. So with that, that is the end of the main presentation. And so Adrian or Chair.
Thank you, Annie, for the report. Very detailed, and appreciate the follow-up. Hopefully you could drink a little bit of water, like you said. I appreciate it so much. With that, I'll take clarifying questions. I see member Stevenson with their hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, thank you. Annie, that was a most detailed presentation. I appreciate it. I have 3 questions. Would you like me to ask them individually or all up front?
Why don't you ask them all up front?
Okay.
I'll write them down.
Okay, thank you. Question number 1, I'm a little puzzled how generation costs can decrease and Ava's energy operating expenses increase in the July to December timeframe from 2025 to 2026. I'm not sure I fully understand what's driving the big decrease in revenues, but not the energy operating expenses.
Okay.
And then let me know when you're ready for 2.
Okay. Well, you know what? How about I go?
Okay.
Can I just go ahead and I'll respond to that one?
Certainly.
Because that's a detailed and nuanced question. So it is not so much that our generating the cost of power is decreasing. It is that PG&E's rates are decreasing, and we are indexed to PG&E. Along with that, the PCIA is increasing, which is a cost that we cover for our customers. So those 2 things combined to maintain an index, even a small index of discount to PG&E, it just compresses what we charge a customer. So our revenue is decreasing, but our operating expenses actually aren't. And that's why we end up with the $250 million deficit.
Okay. So how are their, related to that, like how are their generation rates to which we're indexed decreasing and our generation costs are not? I'm kind of curious. Sorry for.
There was, just like we had $130 million surplus in the previous fiscal year, they over collected. And so they are now, by reducing their rates, sort of reconciling that with customers.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Sorry if I had missed that during your.
Nope. It's okay.
Okay. Number 2. So zeroing out the rate stabilization fund entirely, that seems like a big step. That's not a small amount of money. I saw that you had discussed like a plan for replenishing reserves if we needed to, but what's the plan on replenishing the RSF and how would that affect future rates and budgets?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in the next 2 calendar years there is an ability to replenish the rate stabilization fund. It is a rate stabilization fund in that if we didn't have it, we would have to be looking at bigger changes in our value proposition. So as it is, that covers a big portion of this deficit, the 250 million. So we can hopefully still offer a small discount on Bright Choice. If we didn't have that $150 million to contribute to the gap, the board can make a decision, but certainly I think we as staff would have to present Bright Choice at a premium to PG&E. So it is being utilized for its intent. It is a rate stabilization fund. We were looking ahead, and I commend our finance teams on having the foresight to develop this. But we wouldn't be able to make any contributions if our forecasted assumptions hold. We would not make any contributions for the next 2 calendar years, and then we would just have to start building back again once we have better visibility into where rates are and market prices are in 2028 and forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So last question, and then I will stop pestering you here. So over the last 5 years, Ava's rates have been moving in the direction of being more affordable. That is, the Bright Choice discount has increased, the Renewable 100 premium has decreased, and so I look at that as the Ava value proposition has improved relative to PG&E. Have you guys looked at sort of second order effects of these changes that you've proposed? Like, for example, if the Renewable 100 premium increases to what would be its highest ever point and a factor of 5 increase over its current premium, like would customers switch to Bright Choice or opt out entirely? And what effects would that have?
Yeah. Okay. Adrian, can I ask you to pull up a couple slides?
Sure.
The first is slide number 5. And so I appreciate your comment about our value proposition, has contributed to affordability over time. That is kind of true. So it's really that's great. Thank you, Adrian. When PG&E, our indexed price, is high, we can offer a bigger discount because there's more headroom. When the PCIA is high and PG&E rates are low, we have to reduce our discount because we're just not bringing in enough revenue. But if you look at this chart from 2019 to 2026, there's a big bump in the middle. So even though we offered a higher value proposition, the overall rates to customers were going up. It's not something we lean into on marketing, but we are certainly talking about it in this scenario where, yes, we're decreasing your discount, but the rate experienced by a customer is coming down by 32% just for the generation portion. It gets, a little watered down because of the delivery charges. So, but in the end, even with a reduction in the Ava value proposition, the customer is going to be paying less in 2026 than in 2025. And Adrian, if you could go to slide, Kelly probably knows this off the top of her head, slide 15. This is the per kilowatt hour, so per unit of energy price. And if you look at, let's just look at the top row, the Bright Choice average residential rate, 14.2 cents right now. Under scenario B, even though we're reducing our value proposition, the customer rate goes down like 40% from 14.2 to 10.8. And even their Renewable 100 cost, even though it's a higher premium than now, it is still, what did I say? It was 18% cheaper than what a Bright Choice customer is paying right now. It is really complex messaging to get all of this across to like the average customer who has, 30 seconds to think about this. And that's on us. We will work on that. But the overall sort of takeaway that is that this is really good for our customers. It's very difficult for us as an agency financially, but it is good for our customers. Renewable 100 will be cheaper than Bright Choice. Renewable 100 2026 will be cheaper than Bright Choice 2025. That's a good thing.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation. I see then, although the total rate would decrease, the value proposition for Renewable 100 versus PG&E it becomes significantly worse. It goes from a quarter-cent premium to 1.5 cent premium in scenario B, 1.5. So I don't know. I kind of wonder what second order effects would come along with that. I do realize that the messaging is hard and that the overall rate is decreasing. So just something that came to mind. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you very much. We're going to go back. Let's see. Let's stick with Member Harper online, then we'll come back to the members. Member Harper.
Hi, thank you, Annie, for the presentation. I had a couple of quick follow-up questions about the impacts on the renewable 100 rate. So I'm assuming that that's the segment of Ava's customers base that's most likely to pay a little bit over. Have you done any forecasting around or thought through around like impacts on opt-outs or customers staying happy by not reducing like so significantly? Maybe not changing it at all, but yeah, just curious if that's an area where there's potential for like going scenario A on renewable 100 and scenario B on the right choice.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Paul,
go
I
ahead.
am still here. I just had to shut off my video because the audio was getting jumpy and my connection was poor, but I'm still here.
Oh, that's okay. That was basically my main first question was just if Bright Choice and Renewable 100 need to come down by the same amount, or if there's an opportunity for increased savings by not taking down Renewable 100 so far.
Yeah, so I think I'll start by answering what I perceive was your question of like, who are the Renewable 100 customers? And several years ago, I would have had a different answer than I do today. Because when we launched our service, every jurisdiction defaulted to Bright Choice, with the exception of Piedmont, who opted to default their customers onto Renewable 100. Since that time, we have had, I believe, an additional 7 cities, if not 8. Okay, I'm seeing not. 7 to 8 cities elect to default their customers onto Renewable 100, with the exception of Care and Fair customers. And I will say only half of the customers in Fremont have done this. We've done the residential transition. The commercial transition is coming up August 2026. So the people who are, and then it's always been available for anyone who wanted to voluntarily opt up. And in the campaigns where jurisdictions post mass, we call it mass enrollment. So like after they started service, we changed the default product. We did communication campaigns during those times and Kelly's team created functionality on the web and the IVR so that people could remain on Bright Choice if they wanted to maintain that discount. And what we saw was actually we had, I think on average, about 10% of the transitioning accounts elected to remain on Bright Choice. And we saw that as a really positive thing. It's promoting, energy choice. You get to pick what you do and understand like that discount may be more critical for you right now than having 100% clean energy. So having a 10% response rate to remain on, we thought that's great. Our communications are hitting with people and they're making a choice. They're staying with Ava. We saw fractions of a percent of opt-outs. There wasn't a lot of opt-out at all. And so we felt that people were getting the message and they were choosing to stay with us, either on Bright Choice or Renewable 100. But there are certainly still a lot of people who have no idea that they're even served by Ava. So forget about whether or not they know between Bright Choice and Renewable 100. We have not done any like sensitivity analysis of like at what price point will people leave Renewable 100. That is just not something I think we have enough data to really run. what we do have is the comparison to the PG&E product, that Solar Choice, which is 3 to 7 cents more per kWh, and they're at capacity. People want it. And again, it is the total cost of the kWh is coming down. So it does, it is not a message I'm excited to bring to people. Hey, we're going from a quarter penny to a penny and a half potentially. But it remains true that overall the cost of that Renewable 100 service is going to be cheaper for customers. So we will, be very thoughtful in our messaging. We will track what we're seeing in the market. We can see those actions when people either opt out of our service or switch to a different product. But at this point, we haven't run a sensitivity analysis to see like what is the ceiling for what we charge for Renewable 100. And I think your last question was, could the board pick and choose from, we initially presented actually the Bright Choice discount and the Renewable 100 premium sort of both taking the same incremental increases or decreases, basically impacting both rates in the same way. What is presented is actually a little, I believe, not uniform, and it is putting, Kelly, is that correct? Is it a little bit more, the 1.5 cents for Renewable 100? It's like 4 increments versus 3 for Bright Choice?
Yes, it is a little bit off.
Okay. Yeah.
At that point, yes.
Right. But I personally would not recommend creating a greater differential because we base those discounts and that premium on what it costs to serve that customer. And so you start to get like cross subsidization, which is a tricky and difficult nut to crack.
Okay, so actually electricity generation costs are coming down too then for Ava. Or no, am I misunderstanding that?
No, that's why we're $250 million deficit. But we are trying to adjust the value proposition in a way that is sort of impacting both segments of customers in a similar way.
Gotcha. Okay, I guess I'll hold any other questions. I think I'm like a little bit shell-shocked by I had no idea that PG&E's rates, like their electricity generation, were going to be coming down so significantly. I wonder about what that looks like on like an actual like 3 or 4 year basis, or if this is like, is that what you're saying? That's like expected to level out in like 3 years in 2028?
Well, so it was, again, this impact is a 2-part issue. It's the PG&E generation rate, which we are indexed to, coming down, and also the PCI restructure, which increased the cost to our customers. And there is sort of a phase 2 of the PCIA restructure that is still under discussion with the PUC. And we have limited visibility into what the outcomes will be. By 2028, we will know the outcomes. So at this point, our forecasts show that we're back in the black by 2028. But, energy markets are quite volatile. And the PUC regulatory environment can also be quite volatile.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Coming back to the room. I know this was discussed at last month's Board of Directors meeting. So they had the first review and this is our first review. So it could be shocking on the changes because of the rate decreases, but overall the PCIA going up. So thank you, Annie, for your efforts. I'm going to go to Indra, Vijay, and then Peter in the room, and then we can go back online for other clarifying questions.
So I'm looking at page 5 on here. So the this is Ava generation, but when you're talking about the PG&E premium, is that including like the T&D as well? I mean, yeah,
that's just generation.
That's just generation. Okay. And then if we're so uncertain about the PCIA and the CAISO and EDM and all the new stuff that's coming on, do we have like another scenario that can show like this isn't, it's very tentative. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Because it seems kind of as a I guess I'm just a little bit surprised that I didn't really realize that, yes, because we're attached to the PG&E rates and being 5% below. I didn't realize that when the rates decreased, that was gonna basically kill Ava. I don't think I realized that that was gonna happen. So that's new to me. But I also think that when we're looking at reductions, it looks like you're talking about reducing the roadmap, that investment. And I think that because of who we are as a community energy organization, I know that's I think that's an important thing not to back off on. And I guess this is a very good presentation, but I feel like this doesn't have enough of a nonprofit focus. Because we're not a corporation and it's not about our revenues and how much, I know we want to stay in business. But it seems like there would be some other scenarios where we emphasize what our priorities are. And this seems like just a straight money. Here's our budget, here's our revenue. So I guess I wanted to know more about the nuances of how do we still achieve our purpose without cutting out the roadmap and the community part of it.
Yeah, I will just maybe clarify the reduction in the local development fund does not impact any active or planned project or initiative. That it is proposed that the funding reduction is essentially for money that was put in there that we don't know what we're doing with it yet. And so it's just sitting there. So at a future point, the board can always allocate additional budget back into that fund. But in a year where we are in a significant budget deficit, it seems reasonable and responsible to utilize funds that are not actively being utilized or programmed. So that is where the staff recommendation is coming from.
Okay, and I know it's a lot to take in, but it just surprises me that we're $250 million in deficit. That seems like kind of a large number that we didn't see coming.
Yeah, I'll jump in here just really quick because I can point to the screen right here with Indira. So the orange bar right there for 2025, that if you think about that, that's like our revenue per kilowatt. That's the money that we're taking in per kilowatt hour that we're charging our customers. And that's literally being cut in half.
Right. Yeah.
And why is it?
Yeah. Why? Why did that happen?
That's being cut in half because, as Annie was saying, our rates are pegged to PG&E. PG&E is reducing their rates by 30% because they overcollected last year. And so because of the way that the PUC and PG&E manage their revenues, they're able to reduce their rates. And due to this PCIA restructuring, they're also increasing the PCIA. Now, it is typical that the PCIA is higher when rates are lower. So to some extent, that's not unexpected. However, there's additional circumstances around this PUC decision that's made the yellow bar on the screen as big as it is there. But that's why it's $250 million, is because really the orange bar is that's what we collect. That's literally being cut in half. In order for us to maintain some form of a discount to PG&E, not charge our customers, not have our customers pay the PCIA, essentially. I mean, the customer pays the PCIA, but AVA discounts that back to the customer today. So in order for us to maintain our value proposition to our customers, that's how much there's a reduction when you look at the
and we feel the PCIA is our value proposition.
The PCI, our value proposition is the sort of that blue, the light blue.
Okay.
The PCIA is what is PG&E charges it, and then AVA discounts it back to the customer, right? So they charge, it's a positive on the PG&E side of the bill, it's a negative on the AVA side of the bill, so that the customer doesn't feel the effect of that, and they're only receiving the benefit of AVA.
Well, I just want to say something, and Jim might remember this. We talked to Richard McCann, and he said that he thought that the PCIA was already paid through the contracts and that it's sort of like a double charge. Remember he said this, Jim? and that we needed to audit the PUC or something because of that. You want to address that? Remember he said.
Um, yeah, but I don't want to, what I want to say is that it should be seriously audited. And
That was what he was recommending. us to have
yeah,
done. He said
right.
It's affecting us so much.
And I remember Ed and the AVA staff, the legal and regulatory guy. No, his boss, Ed. Todd, I'm sorry, he tried to explain it once and it sounded very, very complicated and it had changed over the years. I hope he's going to be digging into it seriously.
Because do we have, I mean, I guess the question is, do we, we're tied to PG&E, but are we tied to the PCIA? Is there some like formula in there that we have to do?
Yeah, so I don't know if Annie online could hear what Jim was saying or not. Annie, do you want me to take this? I don't know if you could hear that.
I could,
Okay.
yes, and I will say Todd and his team, are very active in the PCIA proceeding. We influence the best we can, but we cannot control. There is, activities by the industry group that represents CCAs that are actively fighting against this PCIA restructure. So there is the weight of the CCA community behind them. But really, the idea of auditing this, a lot of the information that goes into the PCIA is shared, to my understanding, with a third-party consultant, and it is not publicly disclosed information. And so you're relying on sort of a third-party analysis as well. But that is, I just want to be clear, like that is not something that is within the authority or control of AVA, our staff, or our board, but we certainly try to influence it.
And so it's affecting all the CCAs. Yeah. Thank you. No further comment. Oh, sorry.
I'm going to move forward to, let's see, we had VJ next, then we have Peter, and I see member Vice Chair Susan after that, Peter. So VJ, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. So this, Adrian, if you can go to slide 18, this is regarding the local development budget reduction. The third line item on in the table, it's the cost reduction through efficiencies and program effectiveness. It's only considered in scenario A. Wondering why that is not considered for scenario B or C, because that's something that can be applied in any scenario. It's a within that segment, it's 15%.
Yeah, I will say that would require potential sort of adjustments to projects that are active or soon to be launched, while the top two lines are funds that are not currently programmed towards any specific action. And so under scenario B, rather than going out to sort of seek to pull back funds from active initiatives, we felt that it was a more prudent decision to just utilize funds that were not actively being deployed or planned to be deployed.
Okay. Maybe you can reconsider rewording. I think it doesn't come across the way you just explained.
All right. Anything else, VJ? Thank you. Peter, you have the floor.
Hi. Annie, this really is complicated, and I appreciate all the effort you put in. I hope you're not getting sick from doing this. But one of the concerns I have is that I understand increasing the premium for Renewable 100, but at the same time, decreasing the amount of money we're spending on renewables by 10 million strikes me as a double message to people who supported the creation of AVA or East Bay Community Energy originally because of its focus on renewables. And what you're telling us now we're drawing back. And I understand you're saying we're doing it so we can still be around in a few years. But 10 million out of 255 is not a lot. And I don't know why. I gather renewables cost more than gas or coal or whatever it is that's non-renewable, and that's the reason we're doing it. But I really worry about that message, especially at a time when local communities, including Berkeley, where I live, are looking to get rid of gas appliances and go towards heat pumps. I realize that one of the comments you got is that only rich people will do all that. But there is a strong political support for AVA because of its renewable focus. And I'm wondering what the impact would be of getting rid of the $10 million reduction in purchasing renewables. I don't think that would affect the bottom line very much. And I would urge you to reconsider this because of the messaging and political support for AVA that is premised upon this kind of a focus. I don't know if you have any thoughts on why renewables are more or why we're doing it that way, but appreciate your help.
Okay. So for the Renewable 100 product would remain 100% renewables such as solar and wind. So that doesn't change with changing our renewable energy credit procurement targets. That target is something that was set by the board, and it is sort of a incremental step increase towards our 2030 goal of 100% carbon free. So what we're asking the board to do is sort of give us a little bit of leeway, a little bit of flex during this difficult financial period to procure less RECs so that we can then get beyond that and get to our 2030 goal. So it's sort of, short-term reduction in the target so that we can ultimately achieve it long-term. And to your point about the bottom line, I mean, reducing it by $10 million means that we are now $10 million that much further away from filling the deficit gap. And so I see your point in, $10 million, $5 million, $3.5 million, but altogether those add up. And that is how we are proposing and recommending to the board that we address what we forecast to be a $250 million deficit. But no, the big chunks for that are from the rate stabilization fund and then the shift in our value proposition, but we still need to make up that difference. And it might be a small percentage of the number or of our overall operating expenditures, but we need to find ways. It is a very real deficit. And we are, as staff, accountable for managing and look to the board to give us the authority to manage and make these financial decisions so that we can put the agency in a best position to still be here in 50 years and 100 years.
Well, yeah, just to that point, just to follow up, are you saying that solar and wind, or in some cases hydro, because that's part of what we have, are more expensive than gas? Is that what it is? Is the rest of it natural gas? Is some of it coal? Is some of it something else?
Yeah, there is no coal in the California power grid. And we do not have any, there might be some in our ACS, but this, as a high level summary statement, which we can dig in nuanced and pick it apart, but we do not contract for any natural gas energy generation. However, we do have natural gas in our power content label under the unspecified category. So that's essentially, we have to buy power from the market. It's not a power purchase agreement. All of our power purchase agreements are for renewable power, for battery storage. And then we have this sort of category of contracts that where we get our large hydro procurement. And so that market power is market price. But that is where the natural gas comes in. And
that's where- and that's more
typically
cheap-
renewables are more expensive. Yes.
And there's no way to bargain with the renewable companies to make it cheaper.
We have long-term PPAs that we've put in place, and we have, I have to look up the number. It is several hundred megawatts that we have contracted for new renewables. Some of those projects are online, some of them are still to come. So we did negotiate for those prices, but the sort of short-term, like 10, 15-year agreements, we negotiated for those for existing assets, but the market power there isn't, in my understanding, and I am not our head of procurement, but in my understanding, there's limited negotiating potential there.
All right, well, I'll just say I think it's not a good look. And I understand the budget issues, but my feeling is that just as we own, the only PPAs we have are for renewables, I understand increasing the premium for that, so long as Bright Choice is a choice, but I don't agree with reducing the target. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. With that, we'll go to Mickey, and after that, I'm going to ask for like a 7-minute recess, just to give everybody a stretching leg, because we've been at it for 2.5 hours. I know we're getting towards the 9 o'clock hour, but this is a little heavy, so I want to make sure I have Mickey the floor, and then we'll come to public comment thereafter, so they have the public to speak, and then we'll bring it back to the room, deliberate for a few minutes more, and see where we go from there. So, Mickey, you have the floor.
Okay, I just have a question and just maybe some comments for the future.
We'll just stick to questions if we can, and then we'll come back to comments.
Okay. Then we'll just take one question. And the question is on the actual, what was that very good slide you had that had the breakdown? Was it on 18?
And welcome Howard to the party.
Yeah, and what, did you take into account the increases from the San Joaquin Valley on that for the actual sales? I understand that they were really pretty impactful. So, I mean, those are projections for sales.
Are you referring to the slide that shows through calendar year 2028 and the energy operating expenses?
Yeah, that's a great slide too. So, yeah, aren't we projecting a lot more from San Joaquin Valley area?
So unincorporated San Joaquin County will be coming on next year, 2026, in the second quarter. And that is included within those figures.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's the question I had.
All right, that was slide 6. We're going to take about a 7-minute recess. It is 8:39, so we'll come back at 8:46. Please stretch your legs. And we'll go to public comments thereafter.
Much.
All right, thank you for that quick break. Everybody, we're going to reassemble to focus on additional deliberation, but we're going to hear public comment now in the room if we can. I'll take a public speaker in the room if there is one.
Yeah.
If the public speakers in the room are not ready, I'll go online if there is anybody online. Adrian, do you have anybody online?
For,
Public comment on this item.
oh,
Online?
no hands raised at this time and no hands raised online.
All right. Might revisit it. Okay, so I think we were hearing conversations around the scenarios. We had our members here speak. I don't see any public comment in the room or online, so let's go towards Vice Chair. You had a comment you wanted to make, and then I can go back to Jim after that.
Okay.
Yep.
I know, I know that some of these comments are gonna be repeated, but the first comment is, first of all, the PG&E's 100% solar is now closed, and this could be an opportunity for us to draw customers by saying, hey, we've got 100% renewable here, come to us. So that's just one thing. We also want to, I think it's important to realize that part of the increase in demand is from AI, and we need to address that. And they need to take a lot of this burden of the increase in rates. And a third comment is that we need to really fight this PCIA. This has already been mentioned, but I really feel that the way we're coupled to PG&E rates, and every time there's and the rates went down not because of additional solar, but additional hydro for PG&E. So it was a banner year of hydro, and so their rates went down. Didn't affect us much as far as our rates, but in that case, we're seeing a very low rate from PG&E. But that also hurt us. It double whammied us because of the PCIA changes that were adopted by the CPUC. And I'm just kind of wondering if the favorable PCUC of our state government, it will change with the change of government. And I'm hoping that our next governor will be a little less friendly with the CPUCs or with PG&E and the large ICUs. I'm just wondering if this is intentional from PG&E. Their transmission and distribution rates are going up while their transmission or their production electrical production rates are going down. So this is really hurt Ava and any CCA for that matter. I'm curious as to how other other CCAs are dealing with this. So maybe we should all gather together and regroup and figure this out. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Jim.
Couple of comments. Will do my best to keep it short and not too outrageous. It sounds like you were saying that Cal CCA and Todd Edminster and the staff in AVA on regulations are pushing back on the PCIA and maybe the other costs. But it might be time to talk to the CAC and maybe organizations like Local Clean Energy Alliance and TURN and Reclaim Our Power to have some outside support outside of the CCAs to help push back on the changes that PG&E is doing and the PUC are doing. So that's one idea. And then the other one is in 2025, customers, just sort of round numbers in customers' total electricity bills, about 1/3 of it went to AVA and 2/3 went to PG&E. And if I'm understanding what was happening, I think it was in slide 5, it looks like after 2026, about 1/4 of customers' total bills will go to AVA and about 3/4 will go to PG&E. And that difference means if AVA can provide services to customers, especially customers in the Central Valley with old AC and leaky buildings, to improve the efficiency of the buildings and their AC, you could significantly cut their utility bill, total utility bill, and AVA could make back what money it loses from lost generation as just an on-bill financing for those services. So if it's done right, and I'm not saying it can be, but it seems like it should be examined, that AVA could provide services to save energy in a way that makes money for AVA, or at least makes up for the money that it loses. And I think that's something that AVA should explore seriously.
Thank you very much. I'll make some comments. I think I want to bolster Jim's comments about making sure we focus on that public-facing campaign around PCIA fighting to explore and explain the impact, how the PCIA impacts the affordability and tying it to AVA's value proposition. I think the fact that we need to get through what we need to get through, and I really appreciate staff's understanding of what the on-bill credits meant for our community, to specifically our low-income or care and fair client customers, that we have to lean into what the recommendation is, which is option B. I know we would want to modify and really keep the messaging around the RECs and the renewable commitments, and I think we'll do that. But I think we need to focus on what we can best recommend to board, which might align this time with staff recommendation, which is option B. But I do want to hear more, if anything else, from colleagues on the committee here. Yes.
This may not be a very popular thing to say, but is it possible to add a slide to this presentation that captures some of these things that Mickey and Jim said, and Peter? Because I think the value proposition that's in this presentation is a little different than I think what we're seeing, our value proposition. Talking about, well, I mean, I think that talking about delinking the indexing from generation of PG&E only to the actual bill itself, and then talking about reducing the amount of energy that going through the meter, which is what Jim's talking about in terms of energy efficiencies. And that's sort of what the solar battery program is kind of getting at, I think. And to mention that, and then to increase, mentioning that, PG&E is probably benefiting a lot from the AI centers that they're, charging. And then I think there's the uncertainty of what's going to happen with pathways and how that EDM, where's that money going for the solar? If they, I read this article, can't remember where it was, but that's talking about the reason they wanted to have the whole pathways was because we were just throwing off all this solar and not billing for it. So if we are now collecting money for the solar that we are at AVA's generating, isn't AVA going to get some of that money? And I think that's a question that should at least be raised in this talk. And I'm not saying, because it's a good talk, no question about it, but just some other things that are, and then I think that the fact that Renewable 100 is kind of why people come to us, right? Because you really want to get those renewables. And then, of course, the whole thing about, I don't know what PG&E is doing for the community, like what we're intending to do for the community. But I think these are some of our value propositions that will get lost, which has already been acknowledged, but I just think to focus this in on the top a little bit. Because we're not PG&E, we're a not-for-profit. I guess the JPA is like a not-for-profit, I guess, but so I don't think we need to be have such a corporate approach. And I know we have to meet our numbers and generate revenue and stay in business. But I think there's maybe a different way to package this with another slide that talks about that.
Yes, and so I think we need to stay focused as well on what we may or may not recommend from the option A, B, and C, but we can add commentary what we care about most on the value proposition. So depends how we would want to frame that summary. I think is important. So we probably want to give a staff recommendation from the CAC around what staff is asking, but we can add more context to our concerns. So just speaking to that is something, how do we take that away? Do we provide that commentary during the chair report or during this item on Wednesday? What the recommendation A, B, or C, or does it look different than staff recommendation?
I mean, I don't think I have anything to offer in terms of scenario A, B, or C. Because, you know, the staff has done a real deep dive into the numbers. I just worry about us sort of taking PG&E, what PG&E throws at us and then trying to survive. So, I mean, I think this is a good approach, or, you know, it's a good presentation for the reality of what's happening. But I think there's another piece that, you know, at least I'm willing to fight for, to keep AVA going. So, and I'm sure the staff is. So, you know, I guess my question is, how can we present this and add something to this presentation that says, but let's say that reality isn't going to happen because we're going to make it be different by doing different actions, I guess is what I'm.
So what are those different actions?
Peter probably has a good.
Cynthia, you have something?
I want to say,
You, Mike.
Let's get close to the mic.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
I want to say that what we do here, and I may not have the exact phrase, but we are performing a public good. And a public good, in my mind, is different than a corporation. And I understand about the financials. And by the way, Annie, I want to say that you spent a lot of time on that presentation. I think it was very thorough. And I got a lot out of it also. So kudos to that presentation, because it's also important to keep the organization afloat. I also share Peter's concern and Vice Chair's concern about renewable energy. We are the alternative to PG&E, and perhaps the model needs to change down the road. I don't know if that state legislation needs to happen, but I think us comparing ourselves to PG&E is creating harm to this agency, and the way it's set up, it's perhaps creating a deficit that maybe would not otherwise exist, or a greater deficit. But again, I'm going to say that this organization does a public good, just like government does. And sometimes we, I don't know how to say it, we have deficits, but okay, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Peter, you have something to say?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what is our purview in giving our guidance to the board of directors on this. I heard you say we could suggest that we support alternatives A, B, or C, but I didn't hear you say that we could say we suggest alternative B, however, without the diminution of purchasing renewable energy. So that's one of the things that I'd be interested in doing is making such a motion, but I don't know if that's appropriate.
It is. So if you see scenario B, you would want to make a modification to B, and then we can make that recommendation to the board, and then you can seek for a second. So whatever you'd want to describe, scenario B, for example, and you want to say you do not want to take that $10 million out of the procurement reduction or have zero reduction, that means we would have a scenario with only $240 million, offsetting maybe the $250 a month that staff's looking for, which means they would probably take more in reserves, which probably instead of $15 million in reserves, they may take $25 million in reserves. And then that commentary can lean into what the board may choose to do based on the CAC feedback.
Well, I would move to make that recommendation that they adopt alternative B without the $10 million reduction in purchase of renewable energy, because I think that is Ava's calling card is renewable energy. And although the renewable 100 will always be 100% renewable energy, as Annie said, it reduces the amount of renewable energy that we are purchasing at this time. And it reduces our attraction as an alternative to PG&E. I think that one of the reasons that people go for renewable 100 in particular, even though they're paying more than they would pay PG&E, is because they believe in it. They believe in it for their future, for their families, and as well as for the planet. So I'm very reluctant for Ava to take a step back from that. And that's the reason for my motion.
All right, thank you very much.
Peter, can I ask for clarification? When you're saying the 10 million, saying the 10 million, is that the local which part of scenario B is the renewable, which part of that scenario B is that you're talking about is the renewable part?
The REC, I believe, the renewable energy.
The REC procurement?
Yeah. REC
Okay, that's what specifically REC procurement.
Well, it's REC procurement or PPAs or whatever. I think for the immediate future, it's probably REC procurement because PPAs take longer to come online. But I just want to see us proceeding in that direction. And also, in my mind, this PG&E reduction is a one-time thing. I mean, they're doing it because they charge too much, but it's not going to last. So I think we need to be ready with an alternative that works.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have second option B, that without the REC procurement reduction, which is about $10 million. Member Bakassoon, and then Jim.
I just have a question about the so in the scenario B, if we take out the 10 million, like you're suggesting, what about the local development business reduction? When would the 10 million come back in? I mean, it's not programmed yet, but would it be programmed in 2028? Is that the time frame that we're talking about here?
Are you talking about the next item, just to get clarification? You're asking
Kelly,
about,
is that the case?
are you asking about the development fund reduction? If that got, if that,
Kelly, I can take it. I think, yeah, the question was if we reduce the local, or I'll repeat what I think the question is, and you can confirm. If we were to reduce the current local development fund by $10 million, when would we sort of restore the $10 million? And
Right.
that would be subject to budget approval by the board. So we do that each May, June of each calendar year for the next fiscal year. And so that would be dependent on presenting, a balanced budget to the board. Right now, we are forecasting that we would be back in the black in 2028. So it would be a reasonable assumption to think that we would present budget allocation towards local development fund in the 2028 timeframe. But, that would be
Annie?
just part of the standard process. Budget
Do we have, since this is future funding, we have local business development funding that'll go through to 28 that's already on the books, right?
So even with a $10 million reduction in the fund, we still have $92 million in the fund.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Currently, yeah.
Jim, please.
I guess there's a couple other, I like Peter's suggestion that we do scenario B, not slow down on the renewable. And there's a couple other minor things that might help. One is, because customers' total bills will be going down because of this, if we kept the premium for renewable 100 as it is in scenario A, that's, another 1/4 cent premium on renewable 100s. That might bring in, round numbers, maybe 5 million.
That's a good idea.
And people won't see more expensive electricity because of their total bills is actually going down. And then on slide 19, there was a scenario A, there's potential savings out of operating expenditure or reducing operating expenses by eliminating or defers workflows such as rate design, consultant marketing campaigns, data integration, AI integration. If that was added to scenario B, I think that gives you an extra $1 million. So that would be a way to, and again, I don't know, that may or may not make sense from a staff chaos and confusion, but it seems like there's ways to do that without reducing the total renewable energy.
So I just want to clarify, we do have a motion in a second, so I want to understand what I heard you say. You're saying the value proposition change could go to that 1.75
for renewable 100.
for renewable, so that would offset the $10 million delta.
Would it totally?
It
offset?
would, because they have that on slide 11.
Well,
So
then that's.
so approximately offsets the contribution that we'd be losing from not reducing the RECs by 10 million. So that $10 million that Peter motion and Cynthia second, if you took renewable 100 to 1.75, which is still less than that solar equivalent of PG from 3 to 6 cents, you're still under 2 cents. But staff was not recommending scenario A, but you could mash in renewable 100 at that 1.75 premium. That'll have to be a friendly amendment to the first and second.
I'll make that as friendly.
You have to look to Peter for that first, and then
Second,
Cynthia, 1 second. So let's clarify, there is no second unless you have an alternative motion. You can ask the first person, Peter, to maybe take that adjustment and Cynthia would have to agree. If not, you do a substitute motion. So Peter, the question that you have is that value proposition. Okay, right now, option B says, yes, sir.
I think it's a friendly amendment.
Yes. So you have to accept it.
I always accept friendly amendments.
Okay, perfect. And then Cynthia, would you accept a friendly amendment changing the value proposition from 1.5 cents premium for renewable 100 to 1.75?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're switching that over. So we have the adjustment from scenario B so far. The value proposition change would go from 1.5 to 1.75. And then
Renewable 100.
that is renewable 100 premium. And we would be removing the there would be no rec procurement reduction. We're still looking to keep staff recommendation whole.
Wait, that 10 million that you're seeing is split between the Bright Choice, Bright Choice offset.
So on slide 11,
Slide
Adrian,
11.
could you show us slide 11?
The difference between scenario A and scenario B
Is
is
there.
about 10 million.
That's your delta. So we're looking at, there's no changes in Bright Choice.
No, there is a change.
Oh, there
in
is a
Bright.
half percent.
And if I remember correctly, the effects of those were about split.
Sorry to interrupt. Adrian, could you go to slide 12? Because
Thank
it very precisely lays out 1.75 cents is 39.8 million, as opposed to 1.5 at 33.2. So you have a delta there of 6.6 million.
Oh, 6.6 million. Okay, sorry about that.
I would just ask if we could consider providing this as one option, but asking staff to figure out how to replenish the entire 10 million. Because there are all these choices to make. And I can see that Annie and others have a lot more knowledge of these slides than we do.
Say the 10 million.
So I want to hear, are we going back to the original motion without the amendment?
Well, with a caveat of asking staff to reconsider some of the other choices of which items were in scenario A and which items were in scenario B, and maybe put some of the other ones, see if there's places to recoup that 10 million.
So just want to make sure we give staff clear direction. So we're looking at scenario B. We've asked to have no, at least the motion has, to have no reduction in local development, the rec procurement, no reduction.
Right.
There was a family amendment to increase the value proposition from 1.5 to 1.75. Are you asking for the friendly amendment to go away?
No.
All right, so the friendly amendment stays at 1.75.
Right.
Are you adding to the motion?
That's an amendment.
That's a friendly amendment.
That was the initial, we have the first and second on the initial friendly amendment. Is there anything else to add?
No, let's just leave it.
That's enough.
So we're allow staff to make any other changes to
Sure.
recommend to the board to help keep whole based on staff recommendations. So we'll let them, we're just making these modifications to scenario B. All right, just want to make sure any other dialogue, questions, clarifications, online or offline, in the room, outside the room. Adrian,
My apologies. Who's the second for the friendly amendment?
there doesn't
We-
need to be a second for
Right,
the
then
friendly
we-
amendment. Only first and second need to
Both,
agree.
both accepted.
Yeah, so
Got it.
again,
Thank you.
so only making the modification in scenario B. There will be no rec procurement reduction, that stays at 0. And that value proposition change based on the friendly amendment by Member Lutz is to go from 1.5 to 1.75 cents per kilowatt hour for the renewable 100 premium. Initially, I thought it was a $10 million delta. It was corrected by staff that is not. And this is just outside commentary. That means staff will have, of course, the benefit to make any modifications to the proposal
Right.
based on the recommendation by the CAC.
Yes.
Okay. With that, see any other hands, comments, questions, clarifications? We'll vote as on the motion on the table.
Thank you very much. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Yes.
Member Buckleson,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
No.
Member Lakshman,
Abstain.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
All right, it is about 9:20. I know we had a couple other items. Let's just quickly go through the items here, ad hoc community updates. I think, Jim, you had a report, which is in our packet. Do you want to speak to that briefly?
No. Not really.
Okay, so you have that information based on the last meeting. Any other ad hocs that want to report out tonight?
They already did it.
Okay, so the other, and so the affordability, okay, that's right, we did that earlier in the item, the action item. All right, so moving on to item C10, CEC member and staff announcements, including request to place items on future agendas. I'll defer to staff for the first, anything else you want to add to the agenda? Okay, yes. Do you want to speak to?
I'm sorry, no, Ernie's not here.
I want to, Ernie had requested, a discussion, a report on AI impacts
Oh, yeah.
at the meeting. And I would like to support that and expand getting the AI new data centers to pay for their interconnections. Like, instead of having those added into the transmission and distribution costs that we all pay.
So are we looking to have a report out on the impacts of AI and data centers on our community?
Well, they're not, we need a discussion. I don't know that, I would like to hear what staff is thinking about and what the options are. But I don't know that anybody really knows what those impacts are.
So we want to have a sort of a dialogue with staff support on the impact of AI and data centers
And potential responses of AVA to those.
and potential responses to those. Kate, is that okay? Is that making sense? So maybe work through staff to see how we can work through understanding the impact of AI and data centers. And then you can respond.
I'll just
Kelly,
remind,
thank you.
I'll just remind the body that AVA does not control, I think you mentioned T&D. AVA does not control T&D or interconnection. So this actually sounds like a topic for PG&E, not for AVA.
Yeah, but AVA could decide, and Ernie was actually bringing this up, of not serving data centers. I don't know if legally they can do, if AVA could do that or not. But anyways, I think it's an important enough question that I'd like to get a report from staff on what the plans are and what preparations AVA is making for that.
So if Adrian can add that to the list of interests, that'd be great. Mickey?
I just wanted to add on to that. And then also, if there's any potential assets, any potential opportunities to perhaps supplement or microgrid an AI facility that where AVA can actually make some money doing. It's just possibilities.
And then my comment is around the public comment. Oh, you have something else to add?
Yeah, seeing as how a lot of the problems AVA is facing are also being faced by other CCAs, I was wondering if we can get if I'm thinking I want to go to Cal CCA. I'm thinking other CAC members may want to go to the California. Yeah. Is it possible for CAC members to get a discount on it, or do we just pay the public price?
I think the last time we brought it up was that if we provided the value proposition to staff, they can present it and work with board to support it. So I think really looking at the value proposition of having the CAC attend those conferences, because I think it is something the board is afforded to attend at no cost. At a no cost or reduction, I think that's what we have to present to the board chair and maybe board staff. So if you want to write up something, we can go from there.
Okay.
So sorry, I think that's what we asked about the action item based on the feedback from last time.
Yeah, I know.
But we can advocate, and if that's something we want to bring up during the next meeting, vice chair can speak to that about having CAC members attend at no cost, passing that forward just like board members to courtesy, just like we get the same kind of stipend as the board members. So I think that'd be nice.
Present about what we do.
Yeah, and maybe we could have a presentation on the CAC's role on CCAs. That'd be a good topic. CAC roles on CCAs. And then be a speaker on the panel discussion. Then you don't have to pay at all. And Ava gets free marketing. Right.
Speak on our behalf.
So speaking on your behalf. So the last thing I think on the first part, and we're going to try to wrap this up now. It's almost 9:30. It is late. Public speakers earlier talked about the efforts they're doing through ECC, the Emerald Collective, and LCEA on the enrollment for resilient hubs and the incentive program. I think that's wrapping up. Maybe I think at the beginning of the year there'll be a mid-year report out on what that program is doing or the challenges. Really would like to see that report out in January, February to see how that program is doing with our selective vendor of Emerald Cities Collective and LCEA. Any challenges, threats, opportunities, or what's working well, or what we need to do better. I think that'd be nice to see that at the beginning of the year or thereafter, once they have the mid-year reports. So I think they're working through the Resilient Hub Initiative, VPP enrollment. So whatever that report, whatever they're doing, I'd like to see that report out and present it here. So if we need to modify it or maybe look at the roadmap down the line, how it can be better, or any other challenges spending that first million out of the 3.75 would be helpful to see if we can get some feedback and then provide some commentary or support informally or formally to the board of directors. All right. Okay. Anything else this evening? Let's see. With that, I think we'll adjourn to next year, January 2026. Adrian has a finger pointed at me.
Tuesday.
Oh, it'd be a
Tuesday. So
right.
January and February, CAC will meet on Tuesday per Martin Luther King birthday and President's Day. The remainder of the year will follow our normal calendar. So I'll send out reminders, I think like tomorrow, for the 2026 calendar.
Okay.
Well, happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. With that, we're adjourned 9:27.
Thank you.